Hello there, friends. No. I think I have started with a time loop. All right, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure I'm not doing two renditions of the same song about a second and a half off from each other. That's always unpleasant. And what's also unpleasant is the shade of the evening, the viscous, slurpy shade of the evening. Ooh, it's not even wine, really. It's like sledgy stuff you gotta drink so you can peel back the caul from your third eye and see some absolutely crazy stuff, apparently. And, hello. Let's get me on the screen. Here I am. Welcome to my dungeon of terror, where I explained the freaky deaky Song of Ice and Fire stuff to y'all, with help from y'all and some of the great comments that you guys left me, like, what if there's a shade tree in the heart of winter? And what if Dany, having already drinking Shade of the Evening, means that she already is wed to the trees in the same way that Bran is wed to the weirwoods? It was user number something, something, something. He says he's going to get a real, or they say they're going to get a real handle. Get a real handle if you're going to say smart stuff like that. Yeah, kind of in one of those ideas that's been sitting right there, but somehow I never quite touched it and grasped it. I've been talking about maybe shade trees are symbolic of transformed weirwoods. Maybe they are actually transformed weirwoods from a shy or something. Never thought about there being a shade tree in the heart of winter and what that might mean for Dany. So we cracked open that idea at the sort of the back half of the Why is Dany Half Blackwood video. Half Blackwood, of course. And so today I have on two of my friends, Hero with 1,000 Voices, a.k.a. Sean and Grey Waist Tim. And we are going to talk about it. And let me just, I guess I got to add him back onto the stream. And Tim, I will just say, Tim showed up in a mask. He hasn't said a word. He just turned his camera on, hasn't said anything. The chat says he's been drinking. I have no idea what's happening. Hey, Grey Waist Tim.
Hello, I'm Grey Waist Tim, and joining me is Damon, Prince of the Waste.
Hello, Damon, Prince of the Waste. Sean, how is Tim's volume compared to mine? Does he need to come up, or are we about even?
I think the only reason he's a little too quiet is because of the mask. So,
yeah,
how's
it now?
All right, we want to hear as much of your golden pipes as we can, Tim. They're not golden; they're stained purple and blue. Your pipes, because you've been slurping. I've been slurping. Here, look at this goblet of shade. Look at this. I promise I won't do that again. I had to do one slurping, so sure. You've been slurped. I won't do it again, I promise.
All right.
What are you drinking? Weirwood paste now?
Go ahead.
I'm having a toasted almond. It's amaretto, Kahlua, and cream, and of course I have it in my I drink and I know things glass, because why wouldn't I?
Oh, so you're actually drinking. Okay.
There's an actual yes, this is an actual beverage.
Well,
I have I drink and I know things, but it's a beer stein instead. But this I've got today, this is regular ass boxed wine in a tinted cup that makes it look kind of purple.
Geez, everyone, just cut loose on my stream. Thanks for keeping it professional and stuff.
I may or may not have taken a bit of a hemp supplement too before going live.
Nobody does that here.
And then Sean fed his dogs a bunch of CBD to make sure they'd be quiet on the stream. So
yeah,
I'm the soberest thing on this stream suddenly somehow.
Right. It's the CBD doggy treats. They get us through thunderstorms, and my girlfriend is not here to keep the dogs quiet during the stream, so I've had to. She's asleep over there. She's tucked in. She's got her heart pillow. She's good to go.
Out like a light. Like a light. All right. Well, yeah, it should be a good one. This should be a good one. So we've got a few different things we're going to do. We're going to talk about shade trees specifically, what they are. We're going to go through the black and white door scenes. We're going to talk about the general idea The same thing applies to Euron. If there's a shade tree in the heart of winter and drinking shade of the evening means you're wed to such trees, that could also make a lot of sense. So, in fact, Tim, let me just start off by I want to get your guys' reaction to the basic idea. So let me throw this one at you first, Tim, since you are so Euron-centric. If there is a shade tree in the heart of winter, like, how much sense does this make for you regarding Euron's Night King symbolism? There's so much of it. His other ships, he's got all the drowned men who are coated like whites, rising again harder and stronger, the blue eye, the black midnight stuff, all of that. For years, I said this right in my script, for years, me and Greyways Tim have been arguing about whether or not Euron's really going to be a Night King or if it's just parallelism. So if there's a shade tree in the heart of winter, this would give him a way to control the others. I give you the floor.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to channel a friend of the channel, Crowfood's daughter of the Disputed Lands. She made a great video years ago talking about the oily black stone, like what a Shai is made of, possibly being petrified shade trees, because we know that when weirwoods don't actually die, they petrify and they turn to stone. Now, based on that theory, if it holds true, then that would make the sea stone chair, which is made of oily black stone, that would make it a shade throne. And Euron has been sitting in the sea stone chair lately. He says himself, I have often been sitting in the sea stone chair. It does not complain. So he is possibly already sitting in a shade throne at Pike.
And I will just briefly cut in to say that it is at least symbolic. The Kraken tentacles have been likened to tree roots. It's the symbolism is there to be observed anyway. The grasping tentacle, whatever. But George makes some direct comparisons to it. So I think that's a pretty safe interpretation that the Kraken throne is a variation on the theme. Now, as far as Crowfood's daughter's theory, that one has influenced my thinking a lot. And so the way that I always present it is like, we both see a strong relationship between the oily black stone and the shade trees. I think that what happened is an oily black stone is the meteorite, or it's connected, it's similar to the meteorite stone, and that meteorite dropping in a Shai poisoned the land, which it does seem poisoned, and that the shade trees would have been created from that poison. And that's why they have the similar descriptions. Crowfood's daughter puts it the other way and says the shade trees petrify into oily stone, so maybe a Shai is made out of shade wood, like a giant version of the Bower, which is a weirwood, fort in the Reach. And it occurred to me yesterday that both of them could actually be true. Like, if you think about it, if the meteorite falls in the shadow, I'll lower the tone of my voice. I get excited about this stuff. If the meteorite falls in the Shadowlands and poisons the whole peninsula and shadows everything, the stone turns oily, all the plants die or turn into poisonous plants or whatever, and the shade trees are created from that, well, there's no reason why they wouldn't petrify back into oily stone kind of when they're done, when they're dead. That's just like the life cycle returning. So the point is, the language is very similar. The oily black stone drinks the light, and it is oily and greasy. The shade of the evening is oily and greasy when you slurp it down. And all the sort of language is very similar. But getting back to you, Tim. So what do you think? Do you think Euron potentially, do you like this idea because it gives Euron a way to control the others? And do you think we'll see something like that?
Yeah, I love this idea for a multitude of reasons. So if you've been on my channel, or if you've heard me anytime I'm here talking when we're doing Euron-centric stuff, I always bring up my theory, which is the black coffin theory. What lays at the heart of winter underneath a frozen tree, whether it be a frozen weirwood like we used to say, or possibly this new interpretation of frozen shade tree, but beneath it is a burial mound, a body wrapped up, entangled in the weirwoods. And I've cited Lovecraft with the story of Nephrin-Ka, the Black Pharaoh. I've cited House of the Worm, where what was causing the corruption in the forest was a burial mound filled with these giant white grave worms. And George has given us an example of this with Bloodraven. Bloodraven essentially is a living corpse tied up in the roots of a giant weirwood. He is a dead dragon in the weirwood. And so this is more of the Needhog underneath the tree of Yggdrasil. having the frozen tree in the heart of winter, be a shade tree instead of a weirwood still works with this, because George also loves his use of parallels and foils all the time. So if Bloodraven is a corpse wrapped up in a weirwood tree, then yeah, the idea of a corpse wrapped up in a shade tree would also still make logical and narrative sense. It would be the foil, the parallel to what Bloodraven is. Of course, this would be even older, so we wouldn't have a living corpse. It would be like an actual corpse wrapped up in there. But whose corpse is it? Azor Ahai, Night's King, Bloodstone Emperor, or possibly all of them if they all ended up being the same guy. And this is more Far East, like another example of mythology and stories from the Far East somehow winding up in the far north. East becomes north, and that's like what Quaid says, to go north you must go south, yada yada yada. It's all this opposite directions. East becomes north, north becomes east.
And so these are ideas that George has explored also in Elden Ring. A bunch of things. There's the Erd tree, which is like the golden tree, but then there's this shadow tree called I think it's like the Skadu tree or something like that. And you have to burn the Erd tree. You might have to burn the other one. And this shade tree, it's like a shadow tree that's in this shadow dimension. It's a parallel dimension of shadows and things that want to die but can't. So it is pronounced shadow tree. Okay, so there's a bunch of there's several of you commented. So Skadu is an Old English pronunciation of shadow. Got you. So it is a shadow tree, and it is parallel to the shining tree of light, which there's a lot of tree burning. There's a lot of ancient gods and things buried in strange tombs that are associated with these trees, and elder deities and stuff. And we did a 3-hour Elden Ring stream with Michael Talks and Eldrick Stoneskin. So if you want this channel's best effort at synthesizing some of that stuff, then check out that stream. But the point is, yes, the black tomb, the black sarcophagus idea meshes well with a lot of other things that look like George could be working with. And so, yeah, this would be like Night's King or original Azor Ahai, somebody very, very old, thousands of years old. And that would be fun. Be like a Cold Hands' arch nemesis, perhaps, from back in the day. So, Sean, let me kick it to you before we change topics. What do you think about the shade trees being in the heart of winter and Euron potentially taking control of the others? We've really only talked about this in the context of maybe his astral projection meddling with glass candles and Shade of the Evening will enable a Lovecraftian deity, the Great Other or something, to possess him, and that's how he would control the others. But this is a little more direct and easier for the reader to understand. If we see a shade tree in the heart of winter and we know he's been drinking it, like, this could bring this all together. So what do you think? What are your general thoughts?
So I tend to still think that Euron is going to be possessed. It's the best end game for a Lovecraft storyline of a person who is grasping too far for the old gods, or to become a god or whatever. It's how it works. How many times have we seen that in Lovecraft? And Tim could tell you a lot better than me. But
do you think the Undying might be possessed or enslaved in some way?
In a way, yes. I think they're enslaved by their addiction to the Shade of the Evening. And that's, as an inversion of the weirwood paste, it really just kind of unlocking their third eye. But again,
they reek of Nazgul, don't they? Like, they've been enslaved to magic and they've lost their bodies, kind of.
Right. Well, and that's kind of what's going on with Bran. He's lost his body. He is crippled. He's wetting the tree, blah, blah, blah. So same with Bloodraven. So it's kind of just a different type of, slavery. Bloodraven is enslaved to the tree. He's attached to it. He can't leave. He's lost his bodily autonomy. Bran, to a lesser extent, same thing. That's why he's named after him. And to have kind of a similar idea of something happening with the shade trees, it would make a lot of sense, just because that's kind of how I already think of the others, as these dragon people who were snatched, possessed, covered in ice. And that's kind of what's going on. You have a black tree, possessed, covered in ice. The weirwoods are already doing it. They're surrounded by a bunch of snow. You have the same thing with the shade trees in the east. They're covered in black. They're surrounded by the black stone, which I do think is black stone. I like I like her video, but I don't agree that it's shade of the evening bark petrified. I think they are both the result of magical corruption from a meteor. And there's 10 different, and I could have found more, but there are 10 different fantasy series that I looked into that all have an idea where a meteor comes down and inserts some sort of magical corruption into an area. It turns things black, and there's some sort of either like magical transformation. And that makes sense to apply to both the shade of the evening trees and the weirwoods, so that there's kind of a transformation that you've asserted for weirwoods from an original tree, but really in both directions.
Okay, so let me pause you. I got two things that I want to comment based on what you said. First of all, somebody in the comments, again, thank you guys, pointed out Dany's dragons, black, white, and green. Original weirwoods seem to have been green. The ones we have now are white, and then we have the black trees. So it could be another instance of this sort of triple thing. And then, as we talked about the other day, the trident is similar. The three, prongs of the weapon of the sea god, meaning the green sea or magic. There's the red, blue, and green. So again, green is central, and then you have ice and fire with red and blue instead of black and white for light and dark. But a similar presentation, we see it all over the story. We'll get back into that with the doors, but I did think it's interesting that Dany's got the three dragons like that. And then as far as the others having started off as dragon people, yes, and there's evidence for it in the House of the Undying Dream. And so just so people understand how my theories aren't necessarily conflicting here, the spirits of the others, I think, used to be in the weirwood net. They would be the original Green Sea or Hive Mind. However, Night's King, who's giving his seed and soul to Night's Queen to make the bodies for the others, he's a dragon person, it would seem. This is me in gray area. Everybody else that says Night's King, Azor, or higher, some version of that, that's what it means. It means that when Night's King is giving his seed and soul to Night's Queen, that's special king's blood. It's dragon blood, etc., etc. And it makes the others kind of like ice dragons, which fits because they have the similar meteor symbolism with the star eyes that dragons do. So in that way, the others are both blue-blooded royalty from the great empire of the Dawn, children of Azor High, but their spirits come from the weirwood net. That's as best as I can piece it together. So in the House of the Undying, Dany sees the vision of the fake gemstone emperors. They're all glorious. They're covered in gems and armor of every colors. And let us teach you the speech of dragonkind. We sent the comet to show you the way. But that's the illusory Undying, and the real versions of them look like the others. So it kind of tells you, like, oh, great Empire of the Dawn people who once looked glorious, and their sorcerous powers, they reveled in them. Well, they became these blue shadows. So go ahead.
Well, and yeah, another thing to kind of pair that off, you talk about, Dany's dragons being green, black, and white. And then you talk about the trident being green, red, and blue. And we see those pairings in a lot of different places. And it makes sense because when you talk about the white, you are talking about the others. The others have blue blood. So when you talk about the blue fork, that's the other fork, white, blue. When you talk about, red, dragon fire, it's always paired with black. You talk about Drogon, who had, the black fire veined with red. So
the Night's Watch is always having orange fire in their hands when they're fighting the others. So similar idea. And the others with the blue star eyes. So yeah.
Right. So you have the original green. It's represented in both. That's the, original, that's the weirwood net, whatever you want to call it, the hive mind. And then there are the other kind of, if you want to compartmentalize it, the areas of this weirwood net that have been corrupted for use by the others and by the dragon-blooded people working that, dragon bond magic.
Yeah, you could interpret it as like a literal transformation, or it could just be a parallelism, and it kind of works either way. So we always entertain both possibilities with most things, And that's kind of what I was saying about Night's King Euron. Is it parallelism, or is he actually going to become the Night's King? Because the whole thing is like a leader of the others is very intuitive, and the show probably didn't pull it out of nowhere. Obviously, they're working with the legend of Night's King and Queen, but I just feel like we're probably going to see a leader of the others. And we've talked about maybe they're trying to make Jon or make Euron their leader. I've said sometimes that Jon's the one they want and Euron's the one they'll get. So we'll have to see how that all works out. But exciting, the shade tree in the heart of winter idea makes it more plausible. Like, I've always wanted to see it as more plausible that Euron would become a Night King, because Viserion is coded as an ice dragon, and that's probably the one he's going to steal. And you could just sort of see it all lining up.
Well, and it's like you talk about how Jon is the one they wanted, and Jon is the dragon. He's the dragon locked in ice. That's basically what a shade tree in the heart of winter would represent. A dragon locked in ice. It's a black magic, corrupted magic dragon locked in ice. And then not being able to get that and instead going with Euron, it's kind of mimicking the original Long Night soap opera where we get the others. We make the others out of, a magical corruption, and it's disastrous.
So let me get you guys' reaction. You were talking about the black sarcophagus, Tim. The fact that Dany sits on this ebony bench that she, quote, made her throne. That was pretty wild. I didn't put that together until I was working on this. And if you think about Drogon, he's another shadow throne. Like, he's Drogon the winged shadow, and she rides him around everywhere, and he covers the world in darkness. So, like, it's kind of a repeated motif that we're seeing.
Yeah, and that works with all three of Dany's dragons. Drogon is a black throne. He is possibly the stallion that mounts the world. Viserion is the corpse-eating dragon. I've made many references of him being the Byakhee from Lovecraft, which is a dead dragon, and Viserion is eating corpses that are being launched in Marine. And then there's Rhaegal, who is the green dragon. As Sean had already pointed out, the colors of Dany's dragons are also important here, both for... We have our color wheel theory, which I'm going to be alluding to a lot. But then the other thing that George does, if he's not using black and white to make gray, then he's using black and white to make green. We see this with like the Green Sea, the Green Kings, and the Gray Kings metaphor. Ashai, right? There's the black water of the River Ash, but it's flanked by white ghost grass growing along its banks. But then at night, both the water and the grass glow with this phosphorescent they glow green. It's like a polluted river. And then the grass, the Dothraki legend is that the ghost grass is inhabited by wandering spirits. So he's kind of using like ghost orbs, if anyone's familiar with those things. That's what I envision is going on with ghost grass. There's probably like twinkling little lights like fireflies, but it's probably like ghost orbs. The point is, though, is that we have black and white side by side, but then they turn green.
So that's pretty cool. Green becomes sort of a central neutral color. And that sort of makes sense when we think about the magic systems, where everything seems to be nature-based. Ice and fire magic are still rooted in nature, natural forces or whatever. So, and the Children of the Forest and the Green Seers seem to be the oldest magicians that we have, perhaps the original. So that all tracks. And the other thing is, Tim, you just mentioned yet another example of the others come from the old Dragon Lords. Okay, so when we look at Ashai and the Shadowlands, we see this city of black stone associated with, again, Azor Ahai and theoretically the Great Empire of the Dawn, Bloodstone Emperor, etc. But then all over the peninsula is the ghost grass. And the ghost grass, you could describe it as a field of dawn swords, but it's also like an army of the others. Their blades are long and pale like milk glass. The others have thin crystal swords that are pale. And of course, dawn is like milk glass. And then we have this idea the souls of the damned are trapped in the ghost grass. Well, that's what the others are. They are trapped in damned souls. And then you have the Dothraki prophecy of this. It's it is the ghost grass prophecy. They say the ghost grass will cover the world and extinguish all life, and that's exactly what the others do. So it's like, there's a field of others or dawn swords growing out of the hills around Ashai. So it just kind of shows you these concepts are related. And it would also apparently, if we have like, oily stone or a black shade tree that's created by oily stone in the middle of all the ice, the white snow of the heart of winter, it creates that yin yang opposite thing again.
Yeah.
And another quick thing, like aside from the ghost grass is clearly based on milk thistle, which gives it another good connection to milk glass.
What is that, Sean? Explain that.
So milk thistle is a plant and it secretes a little white liquid that's kind of akin to milk. You can drink it. I think some people use it in cooking, but it's clearly what he's based ghost grass on, just in the description.
I actually had a different interpretation. I think he went with a different plant with ghost grass, and I'll get into that later.
They're not mutually... Boys, don't come on here drinking and fighting on my stream. As you all know, George is great at synthesizing multiple ideas where they have commonalities. So we don't. Okay. Go ahead, though, Sean.
And the other thing that I wanted to kind of bring up is this is something that both George and H.P. Lovecraft are referencing, is the sarcophagi. And it's, when we talk about, a coffin under a tree, you want to look at the myth of Osiris. And what happened with Osiris is that he became king of the gods after Ra, and his jealous brother Set immediately stole his throne. And the way that he did that was by tricking him into getting inside a sarcophagus. He says, whoever fits inside the sarcophagus perfectly gets it, and a bunch of jewels and gold and blah, blah, blah. And so, hey, brother, why don't you try? And he fits in perfectly, and he traps him in it and kills him. Cuts them all up. It's a whole thing. But yeah, the sarcophagus is death. And I mean, that should have been obvious just from the symbolism of something that you put dead people in. Mm-hmm. But, putting a sarcophagus under a hill, under a tree, it's all the king under the mountain stuff. It's the same reason, that Frodo goes by Mr. Underhill when he goes to Bree. It's the same reason, like the roots are not touched, or deep roots are not reached by the frost. You have deep roots going into a hill in a hollowed out cave. So having a black shade of the evening tree on a hill in the heart of winter with a night's king under it, inside the hill doing, basically evil, corrupted king under the mountain stuff, surrounded by ice, it's perfect. That's what he's locked in by, the ice. But he has to come back, and the way that I think that happens is he's already dead, is that the Night's King possesses Euron.
Yeah, and then there's all the Odin symbolism too. So again, the Byakuji are the dead dragons, but they have the beaks of carrion birds. Bloodraven is a Byakuji because he's Targaryen and Blackwood. Their sigil is ravens going around the dead weirwood tree. He's a crow. He's a member of the Night's Watch. So again, carrion bird. And then there's Jon. Jon's also a crow, member of the Night's Watch. He's a dead man. He's going to rise. He has Odin imagery, like Bloodraven has one eye. Jon has the scars over his eye from Orell's eagle. And then Odin has his ravens, but then he also has his mystical mount. He has his 8-legged horse, but then what's another mystical mount if not like a dragon or a dire wolf? Jon can't ride ghosts, but it said that children of the forest would ride dire wolves into battle. So these are all mythical animals that are associated with godlike beings or demigod-like people, and all of the connections are there.
We should also mention the Iron Throne. Or go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say, just to add to your point, one thing that we saw very recently in Meereen is 2 of Dany's dragons are eating corpses as they're flung into the air.
Yeah. Viserion mostly. It's mainly Viserion who's eating, and he's the white skinny dragon. And right. I've brought up in videos, like I've compared a picture of Viserion to artwork of the Byakuji. They're very similar. Like there's a reason that Viserion is so skinny.
So yeah, William Farge is mentioning Dante, Lucifer as a 3-headed dragon, in fact, is trapped in ice in the 9th circle of hell. And that is something that George is referring to. When the others speak, it is like the cracking of ice on a winter lake. And I believe that is the lake we are talking about, because the others speaking, it is like the devil breaking loose, So yeah, there's a lot of Azor Ahai. If it's Azor Ahai that became Night King and is in the heart of winter, it's a direct inspiration of Lucifer, the three-headed dragon, trapped in a lake of ice in the ninth circle of hell. Like, absolutely. And he talks about the Starks having frozen hells. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just to what you were saying. You're talking about him being frozen in the ice. He was frozen because of his tears coming down. So I was just giving you a little tear.
That's, which again makes you think of the weirwoods and their sort of frozen tears that they have.
Well, in the tears of Lys and the tears of Liza and tears of Alyssa, these frozen waterfalls, all these sorts of
Right.
things. That
There's a lot of frozen tears. The ice, the wall itself weeps when it melts.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of parallelism that makes the theory appealing. Even just Bloodraven, like you were saying, Tim, Bloodraven has this Bayaki, white dragon symbolism, and he's sitting under a tree. He can't leave, but maybe he's going to steal Bran's body, or maybe he just pilots, other animals and stuff. It's a similar idea that we're talking about here. Like Night's King, he's under that tree. He's too old to leave. He's not leaving. But could he pilot Euron's body? Could he pilot an ice dragon? Does he control all of the others at once? Something like this. He's gaming. He's got a gamer chair, and he's reclining, and he's not moving. He's just controlling stuff. So that's all really cool. And again, going back to the Ashai and the Shadowlands, like it just looks like a big yin yang of one kind or another. It's just a series of inverted parallels. So that's why it's hard to sometimes zero in on what the specific thing is, because it's like, oh, is it parallelism or is it literal? But the shade tree being in the heart of winter, that would be cool, because it means George set all this up in book 2 when he had Dany go to the House of the Undying. He's setting up all this stuff that is potentially going to go down in the heart of winter. And that's kind of, guys, what I zeroed in on, like thinking about the black and white doors, which there's a bunch of them, is like they're associated with the doors of death. The crone let the first raven into the world when she peered through the door of death. I think that's the kind of door we're talking about. Bloodraven says 1,000 human years are a moment to a weirwood, and through such gates you and I may gaze into the past. So this is doors of perception, hippie shit or whatever. And essentially, these black and white doors, what they're telling us is that the white trees and the black trees are equal and related to each other. I mean, that's kind of the suggestion, right? Especially when we go in the temple and we see all the chairs. Ebony chairs with weirwood faces, weirwood chairs with ebony faces. It suggests that the shade trees should be somehow equal to the weirwoods or in an interconnected relationship. And so, yeah, a shade tree in the heart of winter would literally be the black dot on the white side of the yin yang.
Well,
Tim, you have thoughts?
No, go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say, and this is why you will find symbolic equivalents on both sides that connect them. So like, we all believe that, there's a certain amount of fiery, corrupted magic involved in, black stone and maybe shade of the evening, etc. But when we look back at the white trees, weirwood trees, or, again, the ghost grass, one of the reasons that I thought that milk thistle was a big basis for it is because milk thistle is thorny, but has a pink flower the same color as a Valyrian. So it's a lot like, the sun-turning Valyrian flower, except you extract a white liquid from it, and it's got they're called tears sometimes. So you have the white tears coming out, frozen tears coming out of a thorny flower that otherwise would look like a Valyrian, a sun-turning heliotrope flower.
Okay, so we're gonna get to Tim's. Tim's got a whole bunch on psychedelic drinks and wormwood that we're gonna get into here shortly. But I want to mention the Iron Throne real quick, because the Iron Throne is another black throne that in some ways is plant-like. It's kind of like a throne of thorns, but it's also a bunch of swords that have been sort of grafted to each other. And somebody mentioned the word grafting in relation to Elden Ring, because there's a lot of weird magical grafting, like you graft like a god that grafts people to them, and like weapons graftings and all kinds of weird stuff. So the Iron Throne is another symbol of, it's like the exploding moon, an explosion of black swords or whatever. But that's what the whole Kraken tentacles are about too. Those black tentacles are like the tendrils of dark smoke coming down from the sky and spreading out the sky and covering the world. That's the Dark Kraken. So both the Iron Throne and the Kraken Throne are getting at the same idea, which is the darkness, the shade covering the earth. So a shade throne, it fits right in the family there. So Iron Throne, Kraken Throne. Is there one more Black Throne? Is there a Shade Tree Throne? Like I said, the House of Black and White really does suggest it. But to run through this list of black and white doors real quick. There's the House of Black and White. There's the House of the Undying. And I've got some quotes from those to read. There's Tobomot's Forge, which I didn't pull the quote from. That scene is mostly about forging Lightbringer and Gendry as like a last hero type, I believe. There's some ice and fire symbolism going on because he's got the hen's egg sapphire pendant, even though he's working in the forge. So it's not, I don't think that's as related to what we're talking about today. But they do have ebony and weirwood doors. Then going on from that, we have some more, they're sort of slightly hidden versions of the same motif. For example, the Black Gate under the Night Fort. It's made of white weirwood, but it's called the Black Gate. So it's not half black and white, but it's a white door called a black door. Then you have the white moon door in the Eyrie. And if you open that thing up, you see the blackness of space with the stars staring at you coldly. And it is, of course, a door of execution. So again, the door of death. At the Night Fort, you go through the Black Gate and you enter the land of the dead. The frozen lands, all that stuff. And then we've got maybe the most important one, actually, is the Winterfell heart tree, Tim, gazing at its own reflection in the black pond. This creates a perfect mirror image. The tree in the black pond will be much darker because it's reflecting off of this dark water, and it's a shadow. And that's kind of the whole thing. It's like the pond is a symbol of a portal, going between the realm of the living and the dead, and we have this black-white pairing here. And this is in Bran's vision right before he looks into the heart of winter and cries out. So it's giving us this idea of the black and white tree, this reflected binary or whatever it is, right before Bran looks into the heart of winter. And then the final one is House Blackwood itself, House Blackwood with the white tree. So Tim, go ahead.
It isn't like the pond in Winterfell. It's like very, very deep, like a lot deeper than what a pond should be.
It's said to be bottomless, and Osha won't tell. She's like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, so it's like it raises up another fear of the unknown of what exactly is also in that pond. Because even the surface of it enough is scary enough with the image of the weirwood, the reflection of the weirwood coming from it. So that it's like, what else is lurking down there? It's that lurking fear.
And the womb of the world is this reflected scene. It's also a black lake, supposedly bottomless. And instead of the weirwood reflecting its face on the water, it's the moon. Its twin reflection is on the water as Dany immerses herself, which is a Nissa going into the weirwood net thing, actually, which is kind of relevant to what we're talking about here now that I think about it.
On the Winterfell heart tree scene with Ned washing his sword, it's essentially the same scene as Dany in the womb of the world. Like when you
Bloody
talk
sword,
about
Bloody Moon, Queen going in, the
Schmendrick thing, when you talk about Lightbringer being a person and it's Jon, right? Or any number of people in different ways. A person is equated to a sword. So when you have a sword covered in blood and you're cleaning it off in this black womb of the world pond by the tree and then taking it out, it's the same idea. It's you're birthing a sword. It comes out once you clean the afterbirth off.
Like in tempering the sword in the water, kind of, after it's been
same thing,
anointed with blood, because Dany has gotten pregnant from Drogo before she dips herself in there, so it's a similar concept.
Right.
And Dany, we're going to talk about Dany going into the sea and the Green Sea and all that stuff. I want to get to a couple other things first. But let's see. What was the other thing I wanted to get to? Okay, so somebody in the question asked, well, where did the Undying come from? So we're talking about parallelism and stuff. The idea, if there is a shade tree in the heart of winter, then it probably means that the shade trees are poisoned and are created by the oily stone. And so if we look at Ulthos, it looks like a forest of shade trees. And Amanda pointed that out, Crowfood's daughter, in her video. It looks like a forest of shade trees. Maybe they just grow naturally there. That is a different theory, that shade trees are just cousin magic trees. And if that's the case, it doesn't really make sense for them to be in the heart of winter. The only way it makes sense for them to be in the heart of winter is if they are created by meteors, because then meteors can fall in different places and transform weirwoods into shade trees, both in Ashai and the heart of winter. And then what happens is, the ones in Karth, the grove of shade trees in Karth, they probably were transplanted from the Shadowlands or Ulthos, and so the Undying essentially started a cult by using their magic. They didn't turn into others because they're not using ice magic per se. Night's Queen isn't there. They're not doing that part of it. So it's a little different. But a shade tree in the heart of winter, that would be different because, again, Night's Queen is giving the others bodies and stuff like that. So all these black and white doors, and I've got some quotes from them, they are basically showing us this parallelism, and they're tying it to the realm of the dead and this portal between, life and death. Again, the Black Gate lets you through to the frozen lands. And yeah, I think the idea that we see the weirwood tree gazing at its own reflection right before Bran looks into the heart of winter is pretty good. That's a pretty good little piece of evidence there. That in the heart of winter, we should see some sort of truth about this reflection, whether it's just a poisoned weirwood or literally a shade tree.
Well, and I hadn't heard anything about about Ulthos being covered in shade trees, and it actually really goes well with the etymology of Ulthos.
That's where Amanda's theory came from, because if you look at the maps that George himself had commissioned, Ulthos looks purple. It looks like a forest of shade trees are going on it, and that's where her idea. If Ashai is made from petrified shade trees, where are all those shade trees coming from? They're being shipped over across the Saffron Straits, which are very, very thin, that separate. So it's a very short distance between Ashai and Ulthos that you could just ship shade logs over and start building.
Well, in Ulthos itself, you can kind of, depending on where you cut off not syllables, but the word roots, really, it can mean like a mad dog or crazy dog, or it can mean a protector god. So those two, you have like a hellhound archetype here from the word Ulthos. And of course, it's, a bunch of black trees. So you think about like a black wolf guarding the underworld. And of course, George's underworld, whether it's, a fiery or icy one, it's a weirwood net. It's all about trees. So it's trees on fire, it's frozen trees, but it's trees.
Charlie Vogel saying the link between the faceless men and the nexus of the black and white trees and their status as the faceless men's status as ones who prevent endless whiting and resurrection magic is striking. Well, that's somewhat speculative. I've suggested that the faceless men would be strongly anti-white because it is an abomination of the natural process of death, which they seem to worship. I do think that's solid. But yeah, let's think about that as far as the metaphor here. We've got these, they're like the keepers of death, and they live inside the House of Black and White. I mean, they really reflect both the others and the Black Brothers, and that's why they wear those robes that are mixed. Like, the others are silent assassins, the others are called faceless. But so are the Night's Watch. They give up all their heraldry and join the Watch. They forgo their families and adopt each other as brothers. So it's a very similar concept. But yeah, it's no doubt the Black Brothers and the White Others are a big part of this manifestation, right?
Well, the knights are even symbolically very similar. They're not white or black. They're, shiny gray, which is silver. But how many times do we see knights described as faceless men clad all in steel? That's even from Septon Maribald's speech. Faceless men clad all in steel, thundering down on us. And it's like, yeah, they take their oaths too. So just like the Night's Watch or the King's Guard, to be a knight, you have to take an oath, and then you become a faceless man.
Yeah, and so some other stuff that is made of ebony, Doran Martell, the wheels of Doran's chair is made of ebony, which is interesting because the wheel symbol is used for the cycle of the seasons with House Waynwood, referencing the Celtic wheel of the seasons and stuff like that. So a black wheel is interesting. And Doran's litters are usually used as weirwood throne symbols.
It's good wheel of time as well.
Yeah. And if we go back to the first book, before George came up with the shade trees, his black wood was the ironwood. And we have a house in Dorne, House Ironwood, and yet they're the second most powerful house in Dorne. But they're this is sort of like another blackwood thing. Like it's blackwood, but they have a whitewood tree. And now here we're in Ironwood, but they're in a place where hardly any trees grow because Dorne is mostly desert. So it's another one of these things that like it sticks out and it makes you question, well, why is this located here?
I think there's an ironwood door to the Winterfell crypts as well, isn't there?
Yes, and
right?
Ironwood. So there, I actually got a bunch of stand-ins for the Shade of the Evening tree here. We have the so the Ironwood is one, and that's good, and that's taken straight out of Norse mythology. There's a wood called the Ironwood with a bunch of black trees, and it's where a lot of the giant wolves come from. So that's a good one.
It's where Loki and Angerboda and Fenrir all hang out. Yeah, absolutely. That's a cool place.
So ebony we mentioned, another good stand-in. There's also nightwood, and we see that mentioned only in a couple of scenes. It's not even clear if it's its own tree or maybe representing or referencing something else. But Sandok the Shadow had a shield made of nightwood. In the scene where Sandok the Shadow is fighting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Sandok is great because his name is similar to Sandor, who has door in it, and he's holding the bridge, which is the doorway. But it's a choke point, much like the Black Gate. Go ahead, Tim.
And door and
So for more of the wood connections to other stories, so I've talked about the weirwood is a Lovecraft reference to the fungi of Yuggoth. The weirwood is a tree that also acts like a fungus, and it's associated with green seers and skin changers. Same with the fungi from Yuggoth, Whisperer in Darkness. It's one of the fungi, essentially skin changes a man. They wear his face and copy his voice. And then the shade trees, so shout out to Gray Area. She's the one who led me down this road. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. The important tree in that story is the witchwood. So the fruit of the witchwood can be used to extend life. The leaves of the witchwood, when consumed, are used for dreaming and divination, and the bark of the witchwood is used to make weapons. And now we've seen that with weirwoods. We know weirwoods can be used in construction, and weirwoods are used to make weapons. Bloodraven has a weirwood bow, weirwood arrows. Brandon Snow is sharpening weirwood arrows. So it would make sense that there could be shade bows and shade arrows possibly serving a purpose. Maybe warriors out in the Far East are making those. And of course, going back to Amanda's theory, the idea of shade trees being used in construction like weirwoods, that this could have been a good plentiful wood nearby to use that ended up getting corrupted later on.
So the witchwood in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, it was poisoned with iron, correct, in some way?
Yeah. And so George also played doing gender reversal, so witchwood, and then Shade of the Evening, which is associated warlock. So shade is warlock wood. Warlock is male witches.
Yeah. But can you explain the poisoning? Is it with a sword that poisons it, or they poison it with iron and then make a sword out of it? How does it work?
So I actually have that. If you want.
Go for it. If you have it, bring it up.
So it's it was by Inaluki, if that's relevant to this, but
who is the Night's King, Azor Ahai kind of sounding dude? Go ahead.
Yeah, and it sounds right. But it was so dark iron is crafted from it because he stabbed it with iron while it was struck by lightning.
Okay, so both of those symbols
Oh,
are
and
used. George has a lot of tree stabbing. Think of Daemon Targaryen at the Harrenhal Godswood. And then obviously the lightning striking the tree is a weirwood symbol from Ironborn folklore. Go ahead.
and the weapons that are constructed from the witchwood in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, they are strong enough to slay dragons. Well, going back, Brandon Snow, he thought that he was going to be able to slay Aegon the Conqueror's dragons with his weirwood arrows.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Jeffrey
Also,
Adamo,
the,
correct. Yes, the box that Gregor Clegane's skull is delivered in is ebony and silver. It's like lined with, there's some silver in there too, but it's, yeah, ebony and silver. And that gives you similar idea, like the skull face that we see on the weirwood tree. Yeah. And with dead people inside it, and the mountain is a symbolic other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did think of the witchwood. That's pretty cool.
I mean, earlier, Sean, you had said like shade trees are frozen fire. So is obsidian. So dragon glass is frozen fire. And then in the Lovecraft again, the shining trapezohedron, the oily black stone that can summon the chaos god, it's kept inside of an ebon box. So we got, which is again more like a black sarcophagus. It's kept inside of a black box, meant to hold something evil and keep it contained.
Yeah, and of course, Corvid mentions another obvious Heart of Winter Shadowlands parallel, the Five Forts. Not exactly on the Shadowlands, but close by, and built by the Great Empire of the Dawn, who theoretically built Ashai. And those are parallel to the Wall, obviously. And they're meant to keep out the demons. So, yeah.
Yeah, they break 5 lances against those demons.
4. It was only 4, Sean.
I'll try.
No slight to your former demon master, but it was 4. A Damon air guitar time. Yeah. Yeah. Tim's playing air guitar. No, he has a black cat. It's invisible.
Yeah. Damon, show your eyes. Let them see. Let them see your
the white gloves do make it more dramatic, though.
He's so handsome.
All right, yeah. Okay. So, alrighty. Tim, let's go ahead and talk about. Let's do some slurping. Let's slurp down some things before we talk about the. I've got the House of the Undying black and white doors quote here queued up, and one or two other things. But let's talk about what would you say it was? Wormwood.
Wormwood. So we're gonna be, since we're talking about hallucinogenics and drinks and stuff, we're gonna be talking about absinthe. Absinthe. All right. So. This is from, so first off, I'm going to bring up this line from a Tyrion chapter. This is Tyrion 1 in A Dance with Dragons when he's in Illyrio's manse and he's perusing Illyrio's wine cellar. Tyrion left the fat women to their loaves and kettles and went in search of the cellar where Illyrio had decanted him the night before. It was not hard to find. There was enough wine there to keep him drunk for 100 years. Sweet reds from the Reach and sour reds from Dorne. Pale Pentoshi ambers, the green nectar of Myr, 70 casks of Arbor gold, even wines from the fabled East, from Karth and Yiti and Ashai by the Shadow. In the end, Tyrion chose a cask of strong wine marked as the private stock of Lord Runsfer Redwine, the grandfather of the present Lord of the Arbor. The taste of it was languorous and heady on the tongue, the color a purple so dark that it looked almost black in the dim-lit cellar. So a couple important things there. So the strong wine is purple. Yep. So this is, for Illyrio, this is another Blackfire connection because a purple wine could, and it being sweet and languorous, could mean blackberry wine. And go back to the Sworn Sword, the blackberry bushes. Blackberries are all Blackfire symbolism, and this is Illyrio. So, but then on the other side of things is the wine that caught me was him finding vintages from Ashai, and that got my brain going because I'm like, how are they making wine in Ashai if nothing grows in Ashai? And I came upon 3 possibilities. The first one is Hippocras. Hippocras is a wine that is augmented with spices. So the wine itself is not brewed there, but just a new ingredient is added to it. like cinnamon or nutmeg. Asshai is out by the Saffron Straits, the Cinnamon Straits. All the spices like cinnamon and nutmeg and all these things that wouldn't be found in Westeros are out there. So if they're just infusing already made wine with those spices, then it's Hippocras. The next one would be Rosetton. This is a white or red wine that has pine resin added to it in the fermentation process. Now, the shadow binders of Asshai, they wear those red lacquer masks. Lacquer is made from resin. And resin, before it became a wine additive, was used as a sealant. So, like a sealant for making masks. But then there's the other one, which I think George would be more likely, is absinthe. Absinthe is not a wine, it's a spirit. And that's important for symbolism. And the main ingredient of absinthe is that it's made from wormwood. Wormwood is an invasive it's not wood, it's a weed. It's like it's a grassy weed, just like ghost grass is a grassy weed. Wormwood chokes out the life of all other grasses around it. It's an invasive species. Ghost grass can grow to be as tall as a man on horseback. Some species of wormwood, like mugwort, which sounds like a name George would give to another horrible plant. Mugwort can grow to be 6 feet tall. Wormwood is green, but it has a whitish, silvery sheen to it. It looks like a weed covered in frost. So again, ghost grass.
Sean, what was the stupid plant that you brought up? Tim's destroying your theory. I'm sorry. No, I'm kidding.
It was milk thistle. No, but I agree with Tim. I think all of these definitely went into it.
Go ahead, Tim. I'm just trying to be funny. Go ahead.
But wormwood is the main ingredient of absinthe. And if you've heard of absinthe, you may be familiar with the myth of the Green Fairy. Anyone who's seen Eurotrip, you know what I'm talking about when they go to Bratislava and they talk about absinthe that's banned in America because it makes you hallucinate. This is the myth of the Green Fairy. So modern day absinthe won't make you hallucinate. American absinthe, the thing in wormwood that makes you hallucinate is called thumjone, kind of like how THC is what's the thing in marijuana that gets you high. American absinthe is thumjone free. It's the weakest absinthe you could get is in the States. In Europe, there's a little bit, but not enough to make you see things. In fact, even if you were to drink European absinthe, you would succumb to alcohol poisoning before you hallucinate
before you met the Green Fairy, right? Go ahead.
Before you met the Green Fairy. But old school absinthe, when it was first brewed, when there was no recipe and there was no FDA getting in the way.
And the way they still brew it out in the hills of Pennsylvania, am I right?
The moonshine absinthe, that with higher concentrations of wormwood, that would make you see things. And this is what was made famous by bohemian artists like Van Gogh, who swore by it, that drinking absinthe. And you also got to keep in mind, these guys were drinking a lot of absinthe and probably ingesting other substances, but they swore by it. Absinthe will make you hallucinate. They considered it their muse, helped them with their painting. And we all know, George, why let a myth... Just because it's been debunked by modern day science, why let a myth get in the way of a good story, especially when it already has this legacy?
So Tim, Bong Full of Snakes is saying that in Elden Ring there's a glowing plant called Ghost Glovewort, which confirms the mugwort.
Mugwort, yep. So
I think it's all of the things.
Yeah, so that got me thinking this wine from Asshai might be a sort George's version of absinthe brewed from ghost grass. If ghost grass, wormwood's inedible, but it can be used to make absinthe. Ghost grass is inedible, but if it has one use, fermenting it, turning it into freaky deaky absinthe. And then the other thing that's famous about absinthe is its phosphorescent green coloring. This is another thing, releasing the fairy, that you would pour absinthe in cold water over a sugar cube and it would create green vapors. This is called releasing the fairy. And I just brought up before, what do ghost grass and the water from the river Ash, where would Asshai be getting water from if they're not using the fresh water they bring in? They both glow green. They're black and white, but coming together, turning green. So why not in this brew, this sort of medieval, scary spirit wine?
No, this checks out. I mean, like we said, the ghost grass has spirits in it. So can you make spirits out of it? Yeah, I would guess so. That's wonderful. So somewhere out there might be ghost grass absinthe to drink.
That's what I think. That's what I think is in Illyrio's wine cellar is a shy by the shadow absinthe. But Tyrion passes up on it. Instead, he goes for the strong purple wine. Well, the joke I always say on my channel is what happens when you mix blue shade of the evening and red weirwood paste? Well, you get purple drank, you get lead, you get scissor. You drink that and you get gray wasted. We're back to the color wheel.
It's a lot coming at you, the viewer there, right there. But yeah, you gotta scissor up the purple drank, and then you get gray wasted.
Tyrion down in the cellar in his studio with his drank. That's Tyrion in this moment.
Okay, so the other part of this, and Sean, I'm wondering if maybe you could follow up on details. I can't remember much besides this. In Revelation, there is a star called wormwood that falls from heaven and makes the waters of earth bitter. So similar effect. It's a poisonous meteor, and it's associated with wormwood, which is similar to the ghost grass.
That was the second half of wormwood theory, was the meteor that makes the water bitter.
Yeah, if you want to talk about what that's symbolizing in Revelation, it's symbolizing what every single mythology already has made a space for, that at some point there was a great flood. And we tend to trivialize the great flood, or we tend to think like, oh, there's, archaeological evidence and seismic evidence and all that, that it was just the flooding of the Black Sea, which used to be freshwater. And I think we don't get a full concept for how disastrous it would be. First off, the Black Sea was the largest freshwater source in the world, and a huge percentage of humanity lived on the banks of the Black Sea, drinking that water, fishing it, and the streams around it.
And when did this supposedly happen?
Thousands of years ago. It's basically George based his long night on the Great Flood that is in every mythology, and it's because it really happened. Right. And when you introduce salt water to that, not only do all the fish die and you can't drink it, it infects all the streams in the area. It overloads the water tables that feed your crops. And the thing is it invaded that because water levels rose, which means it wasn't just rising water levels there, it was rising water levels all over the world. And most people, historically, live closer to the ocean. So you talk about a huge disaster for like 90% of humanity because they can no longer grow crops. They've been poisoned by salt water. All the fish are dead. All of these terrible things are happening, and they have no potable water. And when you talk about, a star coming down and making the waters bitter, that's the justification for it. You see it in Tiamat and Marduk, where the poisoned waters are trying to kill everyone.
I was just going to bring that up, right? Yeah, and they think the Tiamat Marduk poison water, freshwater thing comes from observing the Gulf, where the seawater and freshwater do mingle, and you can see the hard line between them and stuff. And so what you're talking about is the flooding of the Bosporus Straits into the Black Sea. I need to do research on that and figure out when that happened. But
it was a disaster for all of humanity everywhere.
Yeah. Before water treatment plants, humankind keenly invested in the idea of what water is fresh and not. So
right,
yeah, and the closest thing I think we could approximate to this in the story here would be the Hammer of the Waters, when the breaking of the Arm of Dorne causes the cold water of the Shivering Sea to mix into the warm waters of the Summer Sea, because there's no longer the arm separating them. And now we end up with the Narrow Sea. And even though the Narrow Sea, there's not much distance between Westeros and Essos, but the Narrow Sea is plagued by storms. Like Stefan Baratheon dies at a place called Shipbreakers Bay. What normally should be very quick sailing trips between Westeros and Essos can be quite precarious because of the storms, and that is the lingering after effects of this cold water rushing in to this warm water, and the effects that would have.
Well, and there's also the idea that there was, a meteor somewhere in and around the Iron Islands, and that caused a bunch of salt water to flood the neck. And now all of the water in the neck and the marshes, it's poisoned. And so we get a lot of symbolism surrounding the neck about them shooting poison darts and poison frogs and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And it's basically just, more symbolism stemming from the poisoned water.
Yeah,
The
and
brackish
Bravos-
water. And House Bracken poisoned House Blackwood's weirwood tree.
Yeah,
Bam. I actually didn't think about that.
Yeah, the Bravos is built on the canals running underneath Bravos are brackish waters.
Yeah. Oh, and real quick, just I wanted to go back to this because
But hold on, the canals of Bravos, as Sean and I discussed in our Symbolism of Bravos stream, the canals of Bravos are meant as a model of the weirwood net. It is a network of green water. So it is there. That's your brackish net. Yeah, very good. So it's the same idea over and over. What's that?
And it looks like a crater.
What does?
The island of Bravos.
Oh, right, like a bunch of shattered pieces of stone fallen into the water. Also, the Dothraki call the ocean the poison water. So again, we're dealing with crossing this barrier, and of course, you need a wooden horse with wings to cross the poison water.
Yeah, the founding of Bravos is accentuated with with moon singers, because Bravos was founded by peoples who were enslaved peoples that came from all over the world and made it in that slave revolt and fled.
So, you have more on the wormwood meteor revelation stuff, Tim?
No, I think Sean covered it. It's just the last connection would be, of course, Lovecraft, Color Out of Space. What poisons Nahum Gardner's farm that turns all the vegetation and turns the water? It is a meteor.
Yeah,
Well,
so there you go.
In a well. In a well.
In a well, yeah. A meteor falls in a well, poisons the water, spreads to the land, all the vegetation, all the animals die. So yeah, that's what my Color Out of a Shy video was. A Shy is essentially a metropolitan city-sized version of the Nahum Gardner farm.
And that fits super well with the whole... Sorry, Sean, what'd you say?
Sorry, I said, and the dead people are all in the basement. It all works very well.
Yeah, and there's dead kids there's a body at the bottom of the well because Nahum Gardner's son is down there.
Yeah, Minas Morgul as well. Similar thing. Poison vegetation, weird glow. Used to be white and bright like the moon, and now it's all funky, freaky. So, Yep. There's the Brimstone River, which is sulfurous. In Dorne, that's where Meraxes dies.
Yeah.
So real quick, I wanted to go back to one of Tim's points, just some, confirming evidence for it, because I'm always with the word roots and the etymology.
I'm going to step aside to keep going. Can you guys? Thank you.
Okay, so when you were bringing up Hippocras, so that's as one of the possible wines that was there, or at the very least, influencing the same ideas. And it was based on Hippocrates, and there's a bunch of stuff around it. And it's basically just transformed red or white wine with spices and stuff like that, which is fine.
Which is also what Rosettan is, the second one that I mentioned.
Right. Yeah. But the word roots, when you talk about Hippocras, it was named for Hippocrates, but hippo is the root for horse. So when you talk about, George being a hippie, and riding the spirit horse, the Slipnir thunder horse into the weirwood net, and this being a mechanism for it, it fits very well. And of course, one of the main times that we saw Hippocras in the series was in Duncan Egg in the Mystery Night. He drinks a bunch of Hippocras, probably too much. He goes up to the top of the wall. Then the next day, he gets on a horse, puts on a bunch of armor or a disguise, like he's a faceless man now, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's all just very weirwood greenseer type stuff going on.
Did we want to? Oh, and that meant you made another point too earlier about the Iron Throne being like a throne of thorns. So that would be a step up because again, George's Catholic influence. So a throne of thorns would be a step up from the crown of thorns that Jesus wore. So someone asked me earlier what was behind me. I'm assuming they're talking about my dead dragon. It also happens to be wearing my crown of thorns and my antlers. When I'm not wearing those props, they're up on the dead dragon. But yeah, so the Iron Throne has some subtle Jesus allegorism to it as well.
Yeah, Shale Goal in Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Tim. Wheel of Time. Yes, also similar poison plants, blight, the Dark One sealed in a prison that's like a magic coffin.
Mhm.
It's all the same story, guys.
Well,
It's only one
Did we
story.
wanna-
Oh, sorry.
Do we
go
want
ahead.
to catch the super chats before we lose
Yes,
them?
and real quick, it just occurred to me, guys. So the Dothraki are George's version of horse nomads, and some of the, obviously the Mongols are famous, but also the Scythians and other peoples that have come from all the area north of the Black Sea. So why do the Dothraki have a giant black lake? I think George might be making a Black Sea reference there, actually, isn't he?
He definitely is, and you can see it by the fact that a lot of the dried seas, inland seas like the Silver Sea, etc., like it's disappeared, and now they huddle around a Black Sea, a Dead Sea. So I think it's a reference to the Black Sea. I think it's also a reference to the Dead Sea. But then, of course, their Black Dead Sea gave life, which is something, the dichotomy we see in Dany, because she births a dead baby, and then she is told she can't have any kids. But I kind of suspect, even if I mean, she's going through a miscarriage right now, so that was obviously a lie. So the death and life of her womb is very much a theme in the same vein.
So the Black Sea deluge hypothesis states that potentially the Black Sea was formed, or at least in its current form, enlarged to its current form, anywhere from 7,500 to 9,500 years ago, which is also what Moore's Crowfoot was coming up with.
Right.
So slightly after the end of the last ice age, as it was ending. That's interesting. I'll have to do more research about that.
Well, if you're wondering when George chose to place his long night, it's the same thing. It's about the same time range.
Right. Yeah, totally. And when George first wrote his first books, like Graham Hancock was just becoming famous. And this was before we realized that a lot of his theories don't hold up to scrutiny quite as much as you might feel when you first read them. But the whole like Lost Atlantis, Ice Age, destruction theory was like kind of hot right then. So George definitely could have been inspired by that. But going back for some of these super chats, I read a lot of these as we were going, but just to shout everybody out. Charlie Vogel, they're talking about fungus that is bleeding red and turning black. That's interesting.
Oh, so Russia. I've talked about this before. This is my black meteor. This is Shungite. Comes from a meteor, and it's only found in eastern Russia. And it's said to have properties of water purifying. So black stone, like it's like the George's version, polluting the water is like an inverse of Shungite. And this is a black stone meteorite that is only found out in the Far East, mainly in Russia.
That's cool. I've got a Russian meteorite as well. Big country. A lot of things
doesn't
fall
have a
there.
Meteor?
What's
I
that?
gotta get a meteor. I'm the only one who doesn't have a meteor. I gotta get a meteor.
Lame. Kick him off the stream. Let's see here. Since you got in Elden Ring, there's a corpse of a demigod sealed in the roots of the Erd tree, and he has infected the tree with his undead nature. That's Godwyn. Yeah, I remembered something like that. So that's
This is more Azor Ahai is beneath the roots of some kind of tree.
It certainly would seem that George is exploring this idea in multiple formats. Yes. The Ifakevron, Charlie Vogel. Yes, I'm going to do an Ifakevron video after Dothraki Part 2, which is still coming. And I'm still working with the artist commissioning Huzor Amai, the Amazing. We're going to have some artwork of him. There's no Huzor Amai artwork anywhere, but not for long. So yeah, we'll get into the Ifakevron. Now, that forest where the Ifakevron, who do sound like children of the forest, live, there is, Lomas Longstrider said, oh yeah, carved, or was it Corlys Velaryon? I forget.
So when which
one visited the Ifakevron?
Corlys does. Corlys does. He talks about
Okay.
He talks about grottos where strange sounds occur. You think you're alone, but it seems like you're surrounded by something. So actually, this was something I was going to go into
But he says
later.
carved faces on trees, but just not weirwoods, right?
It's not
Right.
weirwoods,
Right.
and that's the thing. Like where it's said that the forests of Qohor, because Qohor, besides being a city of sorcerers and the only ones who know how to rework Valyrian steel. Their also big thing is logging because of the forests of Qohor, but it says that the forests of Qohor are so deep that there are still parts of them that haven't been explored. So when we think about where could there be weirwoods or shade trees growing in Essos, the forests of Qohor become another likely candidate, both for the fact that the forests are as of yet unmapped and because of Qohor's own sinister reputation.
It is also the same shape and in the same place as Mirkwood is in Middle Earth. So, Mirkwood
Right.
is a forest of shadows in Norse mythology, and it was basically ripped straight into Tolkien's world. So, yeah, it would make a lot of sense.
Also, Godwyn, his body under the Erd tree, it causes death root to spread and creates those who live in death. So the poisoning of the magic tree creates a kind of undead beings. Like, it's at first when I started not trying, but when the symbolism looked like it was combining meteor, dragon, Azor High stuff with the weirwood tree stuff, I was like, huh. Have I drank too much Shade of the Evening here? Like, because I thought about them as kind of separate families of stuff. But at this point, we can see that the intersection between the dragon magic, the space magic of the meteors, which are like dragons, uniting with the tree is kind of the center of everything. It seems like that's part of the original sin. And Elden Ring is just very similar. It's got an original sin that's still causing problems and undead beings, and it has to do with meteors poisoning magic trees that need to be burned. I mean, yeah, something like that is going to happen, and it's going to feel good when it does. It's going to feel very validating. And I appreciate you, Elden Ring folks, piping in. So yeah, carved trees. Corlys Velaryon wrote of carved trees, haunted grottos, and strange silences. So could there be... I would think that if there were Shade of the Evening trees, Corlys might have recognized it or described it. So it's just hard to know what kind of trees are in there. There could be weirwoods in there, deep in the forest. It's hard to say. The main message of that, I think, is that Children of the Forest used to be more widespread, and this is a surviving pocket of them.
Just like how giants used to be more widespread, we have the stone giants out in Essos that were killed off.
And strange silences, huh? Sounds like the Silence, which has a bunch of Wine of the Warlocks aboard now.
And it has a Iron Maiden with with no mouth too. So it's kind of like the silent weirwood symbolism, but a different version of it, associated with black iron and darkness instead of white wood.
Ironwood.
So real quick, let's bring in the sea metaphor here. This will be a quick review of 3 2-hour podcasts that I can condense down into like 5 minutes. So there is this metaphor that Ravenous Reader discovered that the Weirwood Net astral sea, the realm that the Green Seers inhabit, where their souls soup up together in a soup, that's like a green sea. And the Green Seers live in this green sea, and it ties into Bloodraven's River of Time and all that stuff. So we see throughout the story, we see characters going into either the sea or specifically green body of water in order to symbolize somebody going into the Weirwood Net. One of the best examples would be Lady Catelyn. She's thrown into the green fork of the River Trident after she's carved up like a weirwood tree. She gets blood in her mouth like the weirwood trees have. She carves her own face, so she has a bloody carved face. She has bloody tears. So she basically turns into a weirwood tree, and then they throw her in the green fork. And both of those ideas are similar. Catelyn is representing Nissa Nissa, who may have been a child of the forest with cat eyes. Catelyn has cat eyes, that's the joke. And she is thrown into the sea. Ygritte, similar Nissa Nissa figure, she melts into the Winterfell pond and turns it blood into the color of blood and bone. So she's melting into the pond, takes on the weirwood coloring right in front of the weirwood tree. So over and over, this metaphor is being used. Going into and out of water is like going into and out of the weirwood net. So Daenerys is another Nissa Nissa figure, and she rides around the Dothraki, the great Dothraki grass sea, which is a green sea made of plants. That's what the weirwood net is. It's a green sea that's actually the plant consciousness, okay? And so Dany riding around the green sea, she rides a seahorse. She has a gray horse that's as gray as a winter sea. So seahorse for a green sea, and we see all that symbolism mirrored in House Velaryon, who have a silver seahorse on a field of green, and they are dragon people like Dany, but now they swim around the sea in a seahorse. So they also have a wooden throne that they got from the sea god, the driftwood throne, and that's more weirwood net stuff. So then Dany, she's reborn in the sea, and that's part of the Azor Ahai prophecy, reborn from the sea. So not only was Dany born on a rock in the literal sea, she's reborn in the grass sea. Then when she has two versions of Odin's Sleipnir, because a lot of this stuff is tied to Odin and shamanism, as we discussed in our shamanism stream. So Dany's gray horse calls out to Sleipnir, which is a gray horse. And then when she builds this wooden pyre, which is like a fake tree, and burns Khal Drogo's body, he appears to ride a smoky stallion up into the cosmos. This column of smoke also creates the image of an ash tree, which is also Odin's horse that he rides into the cosmos. And so there's a duplicative repetition of a motif here. Dany is using the magic horse to sail the green sea. That the magic horse is a tree, and the sea is the weirwood net. And so, when Dany is reborn in the womb of the world, that's kind of what I wanted to get to. Like, she's going in and out of a black sea, and she is being reborn in parallel with the moon, and it's a scene that echoes the weirwood face gazing at its own reflection in the black pond. And which brings us back to the Ygritte scene, where Ygritte, who's a lot like Dany, melts into the pond and turns into blood and bone, meaning that she merges with the weirwood net. And so this is essentially what I'm saying that Dany's going to do, is merge with the weirwood net. Her spirit and life fires are going to go into the weirwood net in the heart of winter, whether it's a weirwood tree or a shade tree, whatever it is. And so we see that being acted out by Ygritte in this pond, where we have the black and white face symbolism. So that's what I wanted to get into. I'll bring in you guys here. You could comment on any of that or go in a different direction. The green sea metaphor is a big thing, you know. Well, Sean, you want to go first?
Not to shame Drogo or anything, but when she goes into the womb of the world and she comes back out partway, I think her feet are still in the water. They have themselves a little romantic time for all of 3 pumps. And well, in literal fashion, maybe that's, a little embarrassing. In symbolic fashion, that's 1 for each dragon. So he essentially, impregnated her with 3 dragons, and they hatched later, because that is the womb of the world. He was impregnating her womb of the world. But it also portrays her as the goddess whose womb is a world-sized thing. So, and
right, from her womb comes the stallion who mounts the world.
Right. Walks out, returns from the mother of mountains, and so it reads like a sleeping goddess, right? Sitting up in the position that you would be while you're giving birth. Your upper body is the mountains, and then down here, below the mountains is your womb. So it's very, goddess of the earth type thing.
Yeah, and of course the other part of this is that Dany has a lot of symbolisms to Kali. Symbolisms, a lot of parallels to Kali, a lot of Kali symbolism decked about her. And Kali, she is basically her and Shiva exist outside of time, and the cycles of time manifest from them. So Kali in many ways represents the void, the cosmic darkness, the cosmic womb tomb. She is there before time and after time. She gives birth to everything but consumes everything, just as cycles of time do. So Dany becomes the Khaleesi of the Grass Sea. That's really heavily inspired by Kali, and is showing us that George is associating this concept of a death goddess and this black sea of darkness or space or cosmic womb, whatever. And so, yeah, it's a very, when Dany goes in and out of the black womb of the world, it's just, yeah, it's the same metaphor being repeated. And so, again, I say maybe Dany will come out, but ultimately I have to think if she's going into the heart of winter to like fix stuff, she's probably not going to come back out. I don't know.
Probably not, and this is going to lead me into... So this is sort of a sneak peek into the next thing coming out of the Grey Waste. My next video that I have planned is going to be talking about the animated shows that are in the works. We still have the Golden Empire of ET Golden Empire has not been shelved. Apparently it's in production hell, but HBO hasn't pulled the cord on it yet. And then there's the 9 Voyages, Corus Valarion, which has... I've talked about, I'm very excited, it has Genndy Tartakovsky attached to it. Tartakovsky is the man behind Primal, which, if you've ever seen, Primal is basically an ode to Howard E. Carter, the creator of Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan the Barbarian. Even the main characters, Spear and Fang, their names are taken straight from Howard's first story. So Genndy is very familiar with both Howard and Lovecraft. So in Corliss's 9 Voyages, one of the places he visits is Nefer, the underground city. So since we're talking about going into the womb of the world and coming out of the womb of the world, Nefer is part of Nagai, and this is another Lovecraft reference, another sneaky Lovecraft reference George did, where he takes something and throws it out in the Far East. Nagai is a reference to Nakai, which is the kingdom in the Lovecraft story, the Mound. And the Mound is also... can be used as awful slang for, womb of the world. It's up there with Fat Pink Mask and Mirror Sword.
Mound doesn't have to be negative or crude. It depends on what other words you put around it. But go ahead, Tim.
Well, the point is, the story of the Mound is about a subterranean kingdom that's divided into 3 spaces. There's the top half, which is a blue-litten realm. Even though it's underground, it has this blue cloud sky reminiscent of the Northern Lights. And the people there are pale-skinned immortals who can turn themselves into mist and raise the dead to be their slaves. So they're completely other-coded. Below the blue-litten realm is a red-litten realm inhabited by reptilian creatures. So it's dragon-coded. And then beneath all of that is the lightless realm of Nakai, which is inhabited by the formless spawn, which are inky black tentacle creatures. So it's squid ink. So we go back to our color wheel. We got our blue, others, John. Red, dragons, Dany. Black, krakens, Euron. All of this comes together in the Mound. It's all subterranean kingdoms and a man going into the Mound trying to make these discoveries and never being able to return.
Well, and piggybacking off of all of that, when you talk about the Mounds or people of the Mounds, that was one of the big inspirations for the others. The She were also called the people of the Mounds. They lived under mounds, which is why George's name for them, and it's tied up in a lot of other equivalences, his original name for the others was the Neverborn, meaning if they're under a mound, they haven't been born yet because they're still in the mound. They're still in the womb. And, when you have these babies being born as swords and that's all equated, you talk about kings under the mountain. The mound is, like a hill or a mountain performing that same, when you're not born yet, you're a king, right? So that's Jon not being born yet by Lyanna because, Rhaegar and King Aerys are dead. So Jon, this never born king, and by the time he's born, there's already a different king. So it's like, it all folds very well into the way that George thinks.
Yeah. So another thing I should mention too in the Mound. So the pale-skinned people who raise the dead in the Blue Realm, they They are a hive mind. They speak telepathically.
Which story is this again?
The Mound. It is a story by Lovecraft. It was ghost written for Zelia Bishop. So basically, when Lovecraft was impoverished, he would write stories on behalf of other people. They would give him like, here's a bare bones outline, you add meat to it. She told him like, I want a story about about natives and an underground in Oklahoma, and Lovecraft took it as like, all right, well, I'm going to throw in all this alien stuff.
Because that's just what I do.
Yeah, so we have these people, the Kinyan, who come from the stars. They worship Cthulhu and Yig. So there's all these idols to the octopus-headed god and to a snake god down in this underground realm. They've grown bored with their immortality, so all they do is they give their way. They've given into decadence, and they just have like blood fights, and they just go on until eventually they get so bored with the life they just kill themselves. But then this human stumbles into them, and they're so enraptured, and they want to know everything about the outside world. But the more time he spends there, he realizes like, oh, if I keep telling them about Earth, they're going to get too interested, and then they're going to want to leave the mound and go back up to the surface world, and we're never going to be able to stop them. So that he tries to escape along with another Kinyan. He's caught. They keep him, turn him into a zombie, and they make him a guard at the mound's entrance. And the Kinyan who tried to escape with him, they behead her, and they make her a headless sentry. So the people in Oklahoma, what they see is they think it's the ghost of a native girl, but it's really this headless Kinyan that they killed and is now a zombified sentry.
So spoilers for the mound. Man, George really drew a lot from H.P. Lovecraft, didn't he? That's obscure.
It's a lesser known story. It wasn't published so Lovecraft died in 1937. This story wasn't published until the 40s, so it's a posthumous release. That's why it's not as well known. Like I said, I just read, and also because it's under another author's name, so that's why I was unfamiliar with it until I recently read it, and then I realized, oh, this whole Nefer, city of sorcerers, underground kingdom, Nakai, like this is George doing it again, but with the Corliss show, and it being animated, because with animation you're limited only by imagination. It's possible that when we get the Corliss and ET show, when we go to these scary places out in the Far East, they can make it exactly what it says on the tin. Maybe it really is lands of lizard people and underground sorcerers and fish people on the Thousand Islands. Like that this is the best shit. And so having someone like Tartakovsky, who already does all of this, he was Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, Primal. He's the perfect man to attach to a project like this.
So the Corliss show could get into some of this freaky deaky stuff out east and be appropriately freaky deaky. That's what you're saying.
And be appropriately freaky deaky, and have a man who already does freaky deaky leading it.
And so, why did you bring all that up? What were we talking about right before then?
It's Nefer, and now it's a story
we were talking about going into the world, coming out of the world, the subterranean kingdoms.
Well, and that's largely based on a Native American mythology. There are a bunch of Native American large mounds in that area of Kentucky. Yeah. So like you're mentioning that, he ghost wrote it for somebody who said she wanted to write it on those natives. He basically researched the mythology of those people who lived in the mounds before, anybody from Europe came to America. And yeah, it was, he's basically Lovecraftified that mythology.
Exactly.
That's cool. And so, Dany, so another thing about the Grass Sea is that Dany, she's going to perform whatever Stallion Who Mounts the World thing that she does in the Grass Sea. And then she's going to lead the Dothraki out. So it's kind of like, again, as when she frees the slaves and then she leads them, she's going to like lead the Doshkaleen out of Vaes Dothrak, and she's going to lead the Dothraki, who are kind of like the others. They have a hive mind. If you look at the coming of the stallion who mounts the world, he's got, all of his soldiers will have blades of shining razor grass, and they'll cover the earth and kill everyone. So they sound like the ghost grass, basically, or like the others. And this is all going to be happening in the Green Sea. So again, we have to think about the ultimate parallel being Dany going into the Green Sea, becoming the leader of the Whites, leading them into the Death Realm. Maybe she'll lead the army of the dead and turn them against the others or something weird. I don't really think that's where it's going to go. I don't think she'll be leading the Whites on the physical plane. I think that refers to the Death Realm. But
so that's why I brought up, because you'd said Dany not coming back from the Heart of Winter, and that's what happened in the Mount. So the character who goes in there, his name is Zamacona. He is a member of Coronado's expedition. This is them. They're looking for those fabled cities of gold in like Mexico and Inca, and that's how he ends up in Oklahoma. He goes into the mound looking for the city of gold, and he never comes back. Like I said, they trap him in there, and they make him a zombified sentry, and now he's just wandering the mound, keeping people from the surface world out. And we talked about, like, someone who has to go into the far north would be someone like Cold Hands. Now, whether that be Jon dying and becoming being like an undead ranger after his resurrection, the next Cold Hands, or if that becomes Dany, and Dany becomes like this new Night's Queen type figure just wandering the frozen north.
yeah, I guess Erica is putting a nice finger on what we're talking about here. She's saying, many native cultures have burial mounds, and the Proto-Indo-Europeans had kurgans, which are basically the same thing. So it's very much a life-death cycle within their mythologies. It's a natural metaphor that occurs because the mound of earth reminds you of the feminine body part, which is what gives birth to things, and the earth gives birth to things, but we're also burying things in the mound. So it creates that womb tomb death and life cycle thing. It's a very natural symbolism.
Right.
Yeah.
But in Lovecraft's story, this mound, if it were to give birth to things, what's coming out from underneath it are
abomination,
immortal mist people who raise the dead, reptilians, and inky black tentacle creatures, all of which are present in this story.
Was Lovecraft a known drug user? Writing this shit stone cold sober is impressive. I think he was just really disturbed. He wasn't
both of his parents died in an insane asylum. His father had syphilis and basically developed holes in his brain. Lovecraft was because of his parents, he was so convinced that he was going to go crazy that his anxiety about it basically drove him crazy. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Stare into that hole, into the abyss long enough. He
tenuous connected to reality for a long time, and he absolutely was doing drugs too. He thought it was medicinal, but he was definitely doing a lot of drugs.
Who was?
Lovecraft. He had a number of issues like agoraphobia, and he was trying to self-medicate, but the medicine of the time was suspect. So he was basically, on a lot of drugs,
like laudanum and stuff like that, or whatever.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what they were specifically, but he self-medicated a lot.
Well, Robert E. Howard, who did the Conan stories, and Howard added a lot to the Lovecraft mythos. He was doing peyote. So
that's good writing fodder right there. Okay, let's see.
But real quick, like what you're talking about with Dany leading them in and out of the Dothraki Sea, that framework has been set by Patchface. Like we've seen that, in and out. I will lead the ranging, go beyond the wall and back, all that, or under the sea and back again. Like. A lot of our symbolic characters are going to be doing exactly that journey. And Dany herself is going to do it like 12 times. We've already seen her do it a number of times, leading armies into the Dothraki Sea and out again, leading them into the Silver Sea and out again, leading them into the Womb of the World and out again, leading them into the actual Jade Sea and out again. Stuff like that. So we're going to see her do that beyond the wall as well, but we're going to see her do it probably in a couple other places first.
So you brought up the Jade Sea, Sean. I think we talked about this. Not only does she go into the House of the Undying in Karth, but before that, she goes to the Pureborn. Or is it the 13? Are those the same? The ones in the wooden thrones. Those are the
So
Pureborn.
the 13 are like merchant princes, basically. They
Okay,
they run, yeah. So but there are, I think, like 12 people. The Pureborns are like 12 shrunken old men on thrones. Like
they're dreaming on wooden thrones, and Dany's begging them for boats to sail through the Jade Gate. So the Jade Sea, the Green Sea, the ships is another weirwood metaphor because the Grey King's weirwood ship, and you're sailing. The weirwood is a ship that sails the astral sea. So it's a complementary symbolism of like her going into the weirwood net and trying to become the master of it, trying to sail the Green Sea. Her whole army, she wants to sail on the Green Sea. So
right.
yeah.
Well, and where was she going?
What do you mean?
Like, why did she want to cross the Jade Sea? I believe it was to get to a shy. So it's like she wants to get green seer powers or ability to navigate the Green Sea, the weirwood net, so that she can get to a shy where dragons are born. So it's basically just another big metaphor for like being able to birth dragons through, green seer skin changer bond.
Yeah, because that was the original plan until George scrapped it. Quaithe, like when Dany says like Quaithe wants me to go to a shy, Jorah Mormont suggests we can take a boat to a shy. We can get as far away from here as possible to the ends of the earth. But then for whatever reason, but then George decided, you know what? We're not going to take her to a shy.
No, it's
I want
too much.
I want the mystery. It's because to go there, removes all the suspense and all the mystery. Which is if we're ever going to get it, it's going to be in these expanded works.
Well, Jorah Mormont is always doing Jormungandr stuff because his name sounds like Jormungandr. So he's trying to get her to go to a shy where the world ended last time, because Ragnarok is a cycle. It happens again and again and again. So the last time the world ended, the long night, the epicenter was a shy. That was the center of the world. A meteor came down near and messed all of it up. However you think it happened, that's an end of the world location, just like the wall is the location for the new Ragnarok end of the world, which they keep saying. But
one of you is more familiar with this than me. What happens after Ragnarok? What happens to Odin? Because we've talked about like gods and kings being under the tree. Odin hangs himself, so he's not under the tree, but he's in the trees. But what happens to him at the end?
At Ragnarok, he's killed by Fenrir, and then his son Vili kills Fenrir in return.
Right. So everything gets burned down in the end of Ragnarok, and the ash tree is turned to ash. But there was, I forget which god was hiding in the bark of the world tree, comes out and starts it up again, and the world starts up again. There's another version of it where Bors is reborn from it, and Bors would be the father of Odin, Vili, and Ve. Or is that right? Odin, Vili, and Ve? The three brothers? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
his son, who's his son? His son is that kills Fenrir.
I'm trying to remember. So obviously Thor, Balder, Hoder. I think he has 5 sons, right?
He steps on Fenrir's jaw and holds his mouth open to slay him.
Odin is eaten by a giant wolf.
Right. And he has his own 2 wolves fighting that wolf while he gets eaten by the wolf.
Wolf scuffle.
And all the wolves are the same, basically. No, Odin's son is... It's something with a V. Surprised the chat hasn't gotten it already.
Ratosk is the squirrel who's committing male.
It's Valley.
Yeah. Is it Radikos?
No, it's Vidar. It's Vidar who kills Fenrir.
Yeah, Vidar's the one who kills him. I don't know what happens to Valley. But his sons Thor, Balder, Vidar, Valley, Hoder, Hermodr, and Heimdallr. Although Heimdallr is not always credited as his son.
Yeah. Heimdall is just another metaphor for a tree anyway. Yeah,
he's
Vidar.
probably, yeah. So many of the gods in Norse mythology are just, hey, Odin was the god of too many things, so we're peeling off part of his personality and making a fresh god about it.
Yeah, well, they understood it. They understood at some level these are all concepts, so they're not mutually exclusive because none of it's meant to be taken literally anyway.
You're wearing too many hats, Odin.
And Dany can't even make a hat when she tries to. So let's pull up this quote from the House of Black and White. I mean, the House of the Undying, rather. Read a bit of this. See what we can make of this. Dany left behind him, entering a stairwell. She began to climb. Before long, her legs were aching. She recalled that the House of the Undying Ones had seemed to have no towers. So it's a shadow tower that doesn't really exist. Finally, the stair opened to her right. A set of wide wooden doors had been thrown open. They were fashioned of ebony and weirwood, the black and white grains swirling and twisting in strange interwoven patterns. They were very beautiful, yet somehow frightening. And I guess I should clarify, I saw somebody in the chat. I am not saying that ebony is actually shade tree. I'm saying that ebony is being used as a symbolic stand-in for shade tree, as a clue to us, the readers. Some people think that the ironwood trees and the ebony trees, it's all shade wood. I don't think so, but I don't know how important that is really, because what we're dealing with is what's in the heart of winter. So, in any case, the blood of the dragon must not be afraid. Dany said a quick prayer, begging the warrior for courage, and the Dothraki horse god for strength. She made herself walk forward. Beyond the doors was a great hall and splendor of wizards. I mentioned this. This is like the Undying trying to appear as Dany's ancestors, a.k.a. the gemstone emperors that she sees in a vision in a Game of Thrones. So their armor studded with gemstones, ermine, ruby, velvet, cloth of gold, speckled with stars, wizard hats, gowns of loveliness, sunlight, alive with beautiful music. Come and share the food of forever. So it's got this eternal... you're coming here into this model of the heart of winter, and you're going to eat the food of forever. We're the Undying of Karth. Long have we have waited for you. Her breast was as perfect as a breast could be. That's always a funny line. We knew you were coming. We sent the comet to show you the way. And then here's the thing. When she steps forward, Drogon leaps from her shoulder. He flew to the top of the ebony and weirwood door, perched there, and began to bite at the carved wood. So similar to Drogon roasting the blue heart in the heart of winter, Drogon is like trying to destroy this door. And he's trying to steer Dany away from it too. So what do you guys think the meaning of this door here and Drogon biting it would be? Don't all go at once. The way I looked at this was...
How do you carve wood, right? Like if you talk about, and this is something that we've seen in a million different fantasy books, when you have a gigantic creature, especially a dragon, they talk about the teeth as swords, the claws as spears, right? Mm-hmm. So when you talk about carving a wood door, how do you carve it? Well, not, strictly speaking with a sword, but with a blade, right? So this kind of just feels like he's the one carving the door.
It's kind of reminds me of Daemon carving up the weirwood at the Harrenhal God's Wood with his dragon sword, sure. His black tooth, And that's right before Daemon has that symbolic fight with the Night's King, and they both go into the weirwood net, meaning they drown in the God's Eye Lake. So that's pretty similar setup, actually. Dany is seeing this symbol, and then she proceeds to go deep into the weirwood net and fight the others, essentially. So that's pretty similar, actually.
This also just screams Alice in Wonderland. There's everything about the Undying, the House of the Undying, her going through phantom doors, things not being the right size or place. Like, it's all very Alice in Wonderland. And that paints Drogo as the black Cheshire cat with glowing eyes, standing up high, right? Sometimes on a tree branch.
Oh, that's
of course,
funny.
We see cats equated to dragons a lot, like Balerion was named after Balerion the Black Dread.
True.
We see these moon black shadow cats in the Vale who are always perching above. Perching again sounds like dragons. So it's like
And here,
and
dragons
then in
come from the
three-
moon, Sean. But in the Cats
What?
of Ulthar, it's the Cats of Ulthar who come from the moon. Go ahead.
Ulthar or Ulthos?
Ah, Ulthar. Yeah, that's true. That's very Cheshire Cat. That's funny. I need somebody to draw Drogon doing the "Can you stand on your head" routine.
No, it's because I really recently when I was watching Stranger Things, they based a ton on Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass, all that. And so I had to go back and kind of review that to make sure that I had my symbolic metaphor straight.
Yeah. Oh, so the Jabberwocky, that was where I was going for. So in the original poem for the Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll, we get a lot of nonsense words, right? And the son who uses the sword, it's a Vorpal sword, but his father warns his son. The son takes his Vorpal sword. Beware the Jabberwock, my son. The jaws that bite, the claws that catch, and that's exactly what we just saw Drogon doing atop that door.
Somebody in the chat has a good comment here. Where was it? Oh, Nidhogger. The Nidhogger serpent is chewing on the roots of Yggdrasil.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we have Drogon gnawing on the black and white door. And Bloodraven similarly down there in the roots, like Nidhogger. Sort of. Him and the weirwood are in a symbiotic relationship, kind of. So that's interesting.
Well, what do you think about wormwood and roots of wormwood being chewed on? Sounds a lot like the roots of
the weirwood roots. They've been compared to snakes, to serpents, to tentacles, to worms. George uses a lot of stand-ins in this, but worms is a big one, so it makes the weirwood roots like a worm would. Yep.
And yeah, the roots are gnawing on Bloodraven like serpents. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's kind of a circular symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she sees another door hidden, old gray wood, splintery and plain, but it's to the right. And so she goes through that door. So is that the mixing of... Is that the resolution? Like we've got these black and white that are separate and swirling, and then we move on to that to a gray door, which is what happens when you mix black and white.
Yes, the yin yang, but we're also seeing something is you notice the order of doors again, like Alice in Wonderland, but also the way she's going through the doors. Remember, she was given very specific instructions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only go to the right, and she starts out following it. Only go to the right. And this is something we talked about a lot. Obviously, you are the Morning Star guy, Lucifer Lightbringer. And when you talk about your right hand, the Morning Star is on. If the sun is a face facing you, the Morning Star is its right hand. That's why the right hand of God is the Morning Star, whether it's Michael or Lucifer, blah blah blah. And then when it's the even star, it's on the sun's left side. So when you're going through all the right, you're getting these Morning Star symbols. You get, she gets to this room full of people dressed in gold and red, and it's all very Morning Star coded, just like the Morning Star and the sun in the morning, both red and gold, right? Then she starts going through left, and everything is dead, and it's dark and blue and blah, 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 and that's all very even star coded. So she's essentially going through the cycle of day, but there's also a bunch of seasonal stuff threaded in because the cycle of seasons is very analogous to the cycle of day and night. And all of those things are very analogous to the cycle of morning star, even star every 3 days.
Sean always wants to follow the left-hand path.
Yep. Well, and Drogon is her even star symbol there.
Yeah. Well, her
Notice
going
which
through...
shoulder he sits on.
So that following line, though, if you could scroll back up, though, so after she talks, the old gray wood, splintery and plain. So it's like, so old door, beaten door, but it stood to the right of the door through which she entered. The wizards were beckoning her with voices sweeter than song. So going through the gray door is going to lead to the scary thing. Out in the far east, we have the Grey Waste, which is where all the scary things are. The 5 forts are built to protect from the scary things coming out. Just like the wall was supposedly built to keep out the others, but now it basically keeps out the wildlings. The 5 forts meant to keep out the demons of the Lion of the Night, but now they protect Yi from raiders out of the Grey Waste, which sounds just like Eastern wildlings. So Easterlings, we might as he already put Gaddath and Carcosa out there, so we might as well just say Ruin is out there too, because why the hell not at this point? But again, going into the Grey leads to all the scary things, because Grey is always symbolic of death, like the Grey King. You're cut off. You're cut off, Sean.
I was going to say, all the fantasy authors arrange their maps in roughly the same way.
Gaddath, Carcosa, and Ruin. They're all out in the Grey Waste. That in Russia. What could be scarier?
And by the way, guys, I was thinking about doing a video, Where Did the Map Come From?, where I sort of go through all the different little similarities between our own real-world map and the Ice and Fire map, and sort of talk about some of that stuff. So let me know in the comments if you want to see a map video. I know you do, but I'm just...
And eventually it leads to Melniboné.
I'm going to do that one, Basically, all the little map Easter eggs that I've collected over the years. Yeah, there's a few. That is a good one. The Melniboné one is tasty. And so then... Arya, so these are the House of Black and White doors. The left-hand door was made of weirwood, pale as bone. The right of gleaming ebony. So, does that fit your schema, Sean? The right door is the shade door. That should be the even star, but that's the morning star, the right hand.
Yeah, well, the left hand. So we talk about weirwood being essentially death, right? Everything about weirwood is death coded. They look like others. This is where the dead green seers are in. They're in the frozen dead north, all of that.
Well, so are the shade trees. That's all. It's all monsters.
So everything's all the scary things are either coming out of the frozen dead north or the frozen dead east.
Basically.
Well, so the even star is always death coded. When you talk about like all of these gods that are connected to the even star, they're always underworld gods, and a lot of them are dogs. But anyway, you look at the morning star gods, and they're always associated with fire. So once again, we have, they're really part of the entire cycle. But black isn't a bad place for it to start, as long as it's connected with the same themes. Because you talk about, Lucifer being the morning star, he's going to be associated with red and gold when he's still an angel. But when he becomes the devil, he's associated with black and night and even star and all of that. But, again, like, just look at the different representations of him. Baphomet, he's a black goat, but he's still the morning star. Lucifer, morning star. So like that's his last name in a lot of iterations.
So it seems like they should have been the other way around, but in any case, it says in their center was the carved moon face, ebony on the weirwood side and weirwood on the ebony side. The look of it reminded her somehow of the heart tree in the Godswood at Winterfell. The doors are watching me. And I just felt like that was an important line, because it's not just that it's a weirwood face. Like, it's reminds her of the heart tree.
It's the yin yang though, because there's a black dot on the white side and a white dot on the black side.
And then she has to speak the right words to get through it, which is very like the Black Gate. You have to give the Night's Watch vows to get through it. And the code she uses, Valar Morghulis, means all men shall die. So it's very, all men must die. So it fits with the idea that these are the doors of death.
Well, and all of those are based on, or, somewhat, at least tenuously connected here to the gates of Moria. Gates that were, magically made that you have to speak a code into to enter, and then you go underground.
Yes, that is definitely the inspiration. Then we see the robes divided, black and white, the chairs. One of the interesting things I noticed, as Arya is waiting on the Faceless Man conference here, she thinks to herself that she's carved of stone, a statue like the Sea Lords that stand along the Canal of Heroes. There was something else with the statue. The Undying are like statues as well. Just things you find in the Temple of Death. So do we have any... Like I said, my main takeaway from the House of Black and White was the thrones, really. And the idea that the others and the Black brothers both have origins in the same place. One weirwood net, which is now divided in half, kind of. And I've talked about that as a different sort of metaphor to express the other side of the weirwood net, a bifurcated weirwood net. Just like Westeros is bifurcated by the wall, there's a lot of symbols that seem to show us that there's a green sea, and then there's the frozen pond. The frozen pond is the other's version of the weirwood net, and the green sea is the green seer's version. So that's what we're talking about with the shade tree. That's just their half of the weirwood net, essentially. And, people have asked, okay, well, isn't Bran the one that's supposed to fix the weirwood net? Well, Bran is supposed to download the green seer consciousness that's in the weirwood net right now, like the white weirwood net, the one that Bran and Bloodraven are in. He's going to take all those, he's going to empty that thing out because the spirits of the others need to go back in. That's their original home. So this corrupted weirwood net, the frozen version, that's got to be shut down. That's the dark web, quote unquote, and it needs to be shut down and burned probably. So I think that's why we're seeing Drogon either burn the blue shadow heart or chew on the bifurcated door to reveal the gray door. Like he's going to help Dany get rid of this bifurcation, essentially. That's how I interpret this. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah. And it just... Sorry, Tim, go ahead. I kind of lost my train there. Sorry.
So... Well, I was going to say, so Westeros is actually it's just like Essos, it's double bifurcated. You got the wall on one hand, but then you also had the Hammer of the Waters, which separated the Arm of Dorne and separated Westeros from Essos. Then Essos is double bifurcated too, because first there's the Bone Mountains, which are a natural phenomenon separating Western Essos from Eastern Essos, and then you have the natural construction of the Five Forts. And then this is more black and white. You have the black dragon-fused forts on one end and the white snow-capped mountains of the bones on another end, all separating. And then what lays in between the Five Forts and those snow-capped mountains is the area that used to be the Great Empire of the Dawn.
Well, and a fun thing about the geography of Westeros is that George has laid it out in that same cycle, whether it's a day, morning star, even star cycle, or the seasons. You come in on the Arm of Dorne, right? Like the people originally immigrated there, and everything about Dorne is morning and morning star coded. They have the, red gold sun spear. You go through the red mountains, and then you get to the Stormlands and the Reach and all of that, and it's all very day coded. And once you get to the far north, it is now night and winter and evening coded. So it's a progression going from south to north, and when we kind of follow that, it's all very Westeros, and we only see the weirwoods in Westeros, and nowadays we basically only see them very far north, even north of the Wall. So when you have this door that is both ebony and weirwood, as far as we know, ebony doesn't grow in Westeros, so it is very non-Westeros coded. I believe it grows in the Summer Isles and Essos. And then, so it's kind of like coding the two continents as symbolically separate, which makes a lot of sense because the Dragon Lords coming to Westeros would be kind of the mixing when they run into the Greenseer people.
Okay, so somebody is asking, and I think this relates to what you just said, Sean. Some people are asking about the Hammer of the Waters, and Tim brought it up as a splitting. The Hammer of the Waters, according to my thinking, it is not an attempt by the Greenseers to prevent people from crossing the Arm of Dorne. The Maesters pour scorn on that idea right when they present it to us. That's not what happened. What happened was that was a meteor strike, and the meteor strike was called down somehow through magic that the Children of the Forest possessed. It seems to be an appropriation of their magic, and it does have to do with blood sacrifice and weirwood trees and stuff. So what this actually is another example of the weirwood net being bifurcated by the meteor strike. The meteor strikes the Arm of Dorne, breaks the connection, and now a land that was formerly one is split in half. That's what we're talking about. The meteor attack, poisoning the weirwood net, splitting it in half, creating this bifurcation. The others have their half. It's the same idea.
Yeah. And like I said, when cold water rushes in and meets warm water, like what happens when the arm disappears, and we're seeing this in real life now, right? As the polar ice caps melt and we get more cold water coming into the Atlantic and the Pacific, we're seeing a lot more harsher storms, a lot more Category 5 hurricanes, a lot more tornadoes. The more this happens, this is George talking about, like, he's using magical metaphors to talk about like real environmental devastation.
Yeah, right. Just to kind of like really explain that a little more. What Tim's talking about is when you break the Arm of Dorne and all of a sudden the water can get through, you have the Shivering Sea and the Summer Sea. They're very well named. One of them is hot, one of them is cold. And so now that they hit each other, you have, air pressure creates storms. When you have warm water currents like the Gulf Stream in our world hitting cold fronts, warm front hits a cold front, that's the conditions under which a tropical storm forms. And then that's what gives us, tornadoes and stuff like that, hurricanes, stuff like that. So that kind of devastation hitting Shipbreaker Bay and the Stormlands is something that started after the Hammer of the Waters, is the point.
Yes, exactly. So it's like the conditions changed after this bifurcation. And somebody's asking, I thought it was Azor Ahai that brought on the meteor. Yeah, that's what I said. That's the whole point of Nissa Nissa being a child of the forest. Azor Ahai kills her and uses her in a blood magic ritual, and that enables him to tap into weirwood power. Something vaguely along those lines. So he's breaking into the weirwood net. Some people have mentioned Dany's house with the red door. That could also apply to the weirwoods, since the red door is the bloody mouth. That's how you get in the weirwood. So and ultimately,
she finds the house with the red door in there.
Was that?
She finds the house with the red door in there. One of her little trips.
Oh right, yeah, that is it's in her shade vision. Yeah, that's true. Right.
So again, just like Alice in Wonderland, you take a potion and you go through a bunch of doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George was listening to a lot of White Rabbit.
So, White Rabbit. So here's the quote about the ebon bench. This is actually the beginning of a chapter. She could hear the dead man coming up the steps. The slow, measured sound of footsteps before him echoing amongst the purple pillars of her hall. Daenerys Targaryen awaited him upon the ebon bench that she had made her throne. Her eyes were soft with sleep, her silver gold hair all tousled. So, she's on her shade tree throne, quote unquote, and the dead men are coming to her, but it's a dead man that served her. So again, she's Queen of the Whites, sitting on the shade tree throne, okay? And then it says, there's no need for you to see this. He died for me. Dany clutched her lion pelt to her chest. So obvious Jesus reference here. Jesus died for us, and obviously the Bible uses extensive lion symbolism for God and Jesus, the Lion of Judah, all this stuff. And so, Aslan. Yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
Aslan.
Yes.
The Jesus allegory lion? Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's Dany who's essentially going to be the Jesus figure, but the symbolism is being injected right into the sequence here. She's on her ebon bench. The dead are walking that serve Dany, and she's thinking about Jesus' Aslan's sacrifice. Exactly right.
Also, one thing we want to bring up here, she's on an ebony bench and wearing a lion pelt. That's like a lion of night.
Yeah, and isn't it a white lion too?
It is a white
Yeah.
lion pelt. Yeah, so not exactly like the
What's,
Lion of Night, but it's something like that.
Well,
what's that
yeah.
white lion that they say Lion King was a complete ripoff of? Maybe George.
Hamlet.
Yeah, Hamlet. And then she references the red door. She had been dreaming of a house with a red door while sitting on the ebon bench. So, again, we see the same symbols sort of present. Yeah. Yeah, the red door is kind of womb coated. That is a red door when we're giving birth, absolutely. And that sort of fits with the whole cosmic womb tomb. That's what the weirwood is, essentially, yeah. And we see the baby sacrifice in the mouth of the weirwood tree at White Tree. So then, let's see. You must not touch the dead man. She's not worried about it. And let's see here. Talking about the white lion. Made her feel as if Drogo were still near her. So it's definitely a sun symbol.
It's Kimba the white lion that I was thinking of. Kimba is born on a ship during a storm, and the storm wrecks the ship, and Daenerys Stormborn.
Is this one of the Lion King sequels?
No, this is Kimba the White Lion. It's an animated series from the 1950s, and it's what I was referring to, what the Lion King ripped off. Kimba the White Lion is born on a ship, and he has taught his father's ideals, but as a huge tropical storm nears, he urges the cub out through the bars of her cage, and the storm wrecks the ship, and Kimba starts to drown in the ocean. The fish help him learn to swim. As he begins to despair, the stars in the sky form the face of his mother, who encourages him, and guided by butterflies, he makes it to land.
Simba and Kimba. That's cool. Yeah, see, to me, the white lion pelt and the black throne, that's kind of like the maiden maid of light and the lion of night combined as a unified symbol when she's there. Which is interesting, because that's kind of what she's going to restore, is some sort of balance or unity. You know what I mean? So yeah, she's going to erase the delineation between these two halves of the weirwood net in a way. And let's see here. Then there was the Unsullied are described as being cast of bronze as well. So again, the statues, they're like corpses. They're like whites. And he had been so here's the dead man. He had been a tall man, blue-eyed and fair of face, so he's a White Walker. Some child of Lys or Old Volantis. Though his eyes were open, it was his wounds that wept. So he's got weeping wounds like a weirwood. There were more wounds than she could count. So this is kind of like an other that's in the weirwood net that's this dead figure. And that makes sense. I mean, even forgetting the other thing, you could just say this is a dead man with, weirwood symbolism of weeping eyes. And the whole point of her going into the heart of winter is to free the whites, the dead men, that are tied to the weirwood trees. And so that was pretty cool.
Real quick fun thing about white lions. Like, she's got the white lion pelt. So when you look at white tigers, they're actually products of incest, and they have Down syndrome. Like 1 out of 4 has Down syndrome. Yeah, so like white tigers are a huge problem, and white lions. Oh, okay. Sorry, that thought.
Huge problem. Did somebody call me?
And then the other quote I had pulled here was that Hisdar replaced the ebony bench with 2 imposing thrones of gilded wood, their tall backs carved into the shape of dragons, and one is empty. So we've seen that pair of thrones with one being empty also in the Eyrie, which is like an ice temple. There's 2 dead weirwood thrones. They're cut weirwood, and one is empty. And so this has always suggested Knights King and Queen to me. It's interesting that Dany's throne is sort of transformed into these 2, which one is empty. So it's kind of the reverse order of the process. These also reminded me of the gods of the 7 that are burned by Stannis. Gilded wood, carved wood into the shape of gods.
Yeah.
Wasn't there something with the sphinxes? Like one was carved in the likeness of a man and one carved in the likeness of a woman, but the Dothraki wheeled one of them away, and now the other is sitting alone.
The Valerian Sphinx. Yes, correct. Yes, you're right.
And sorry, people in the chat have kind of where I was going with that lion thing before Rick got saucy behind me. The white lions are albinos essentially. They're like so it's a lot like Bloodraven. Like there's no other reason that he would insert an albino lion other than to show, a Sun King figure who is unable to stand the sun.
Say that again, Sean.
Saying white lions are albinos. They're
Uh-huh.
not. It's not a. It's not just a different coat color. They're albino. So it's like
You're saying Bloodraven can't go to Dorne.
Yes, having Sun Kings who can't stand the sun. It's its own little anachronism, right?
Yeah, it's kind of Elric of Melnibone too.
Right.
Every time Dunk and Egg want to hide away from Bloodraven, they go down the Sun Spear.
Yeah. It also makes a great Lion of Night idea because, like, if you can't stand the sun, you're a specific type of lion, which is a Sun King figure that can't stand the sun. You might be happy with a long night. You might cause it.
I guess the fact that the Lion of Night sits on a black marble throne is itself kind of an interesting symbol because the Lion of Night tracks to the black dragon archetype. Balerion the cat, Balerion the dragon, the dark sun that sends out his demons during the long night. So yeah, he's sitting on a black throne. Yeah, that's interesting.
Jeffrey Adamo made the observation that in the House of Black and White, there is a lion sitting on an ebony throne.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And he's in the House of Black and White, yes.
I thought you were talking about Dany, my bad.
No, I'm talking about the Lion of Night. Black marble, throne of black marble, man with a lion's head, and some more black thrones for Azor Ahai. All right, well, I think that's pretty much all the things I wanted to hit today. I am starting to run out of steam, and we're about 2.5 hours in. So, closing thoughts from you two or from the chat, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Do we think there's a shade tree in the heart of winter? How are you feeling about the idea?
Yeah, because whenever we use like these computer terms for the weirwood net, like you mentioned, the dark web, it does seem like each individual weirwood is like an external hard drive, and I guess the stumps are like what Jamie sleeps on, they're like USBs. But if they're all hooked to some kind of master computer in the end, and that becomes the great tree, the tree of life, Yggdrasil, whatever giant, all-knowing tree stand-in you need, that is what it's at the heart of winter. But that all-knowing mother tree has now been corrupted. That's the way I envision this happening. Like the master CPU has a virus, and that is Azor Ahai beneath the roots. And that is what has kicked the others, the spirits, out of their trees. His meddling with the weirwood web has caused this corruption. It's caused this abomination. And so it has kicked out the native little wood nymphs out of their tree homes.
Yeah, and the persimmon tree that Dany sees atop the pyramid, its bark is very dark, but its fruit is fiery orange and is associated with Job's fire. So it would look like a shade tree on fire. And that may be what we need to do, is burn the shade tree at the heart of winter. You got anything on that, Sean?
Yeah, so I guess the symbolic way that I attack this is I look at the Dance of the Dragons, a war with dragons on both sides, and green men symbolically and literally on both sides. As we've seen in the most recent season, we had Daemon Targaryen doing a bunch of green seer stuff, and we also had him running into Helena. So we have green seer stuff going on both sides. We have dragons on both sides. So when we look at the others, there is a perversion of green seeing in that, but there is also an element of dragon people in that. So the idea that it would be a shade tree, which more closely relates to, fire magic and, being burnt And it comes from places we know dragons to be in the Far East or to have come from. So the idea that there would be some fiery, burning dragon magic at the heart of the ice, it fits very well into the yin yang type symbolic tone that George is giving, not only about the others, but the Night's Watch are also doing similar, having both symbolisms meet.
Yeah. Again, because like going back to House of the Worm, and George wrote in his Dying World series a spiritual sequel to that. That's why I read House of the Worm. What brought the corruption in the middle of the forest to an end was a great fire. It was a cleansing fire, because fire can be both destruction and fire can be life. Yes, fire destroys, but then afterwards, new life grows anew. Sometimes fire is. That's why forest fires back in the day used to be a natural phenomenon, but they would burn themselves out and then life would start again stronger. But as time goes on, we're seeing like these calamities are getting worse and worse. And so this is all a commentary on stuff like that.
Yeah, that's why we see it in Dunk and Egg. We see a giant forest fire and it's a disaster and it kind of causes its own mini long night. But then at the end of the story, there's a big resolution. There's a marriage, which is a symbolic resolution itself, and everybody's happy and goes off their own way, and the cycle starts again.
Yeah, the symbolism of that story kind of has it all. So there these two lands that used to be joined. They used to be one, because Coldmoat used to be Osgray land. They're separated. There's a stream in the middle. The dam itself is a source of contention. That's the weir, and the final fight is in the stream. And then once Dunk and Longinch fight, then the dividing line comes down and the two sides marry each other. So this is, I mean, that's the whole thing right there, essentially. And I think that's maybe why Rohan Weber, after she goes on and does more stuff, eventually disappears without a trace. Because that's essentially what Dany's going to do, is disappear into the weirwood net without a trace. Just like Ashara Dane did. And who else has done something like this?
Oh, Catelyn.
Yep, Catelyn.
Arya. Sansa.
And there's Ygritte wearing her frosty snow mask as she dies, with an arrow in her heart.
There's a secret white lion in the heart of the Coldmoat Castle. Remember the Osgrey's sigil is a lion, and they carved it. Yeah, they carved the Chequy lion into the stone.
Right.
Oh, and then Rohan Weber has a kid who Eustace Osgrey is going to raise as his own, but it's probably a dunkling.
And then she goes off and marries another lion.
And she marries Cheryl Lannister.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, Shara Seastar, we just don't know. She's not even said to have disappeared. We just don't get the rest of her story, and so we've speculated that maybe she's Quaithe or whatever, but she's not said to have disappeared without a trace. We don't know that yet, just to be clear.
Oh, here's a good one. Sun Chaser. What's her name? From Fair Isle. I always forget her name. Alyssa Farman. That's a good one. Yeah, and Aeria Targaryen, the chat is mentioning.
Yeah, she came back, and yeah, I don't think that she's showing us Dany's ending. Of course, there is a Daenerys who catches winter fever and dies, so that's could be a potential for this, essentially. And then there's also the Daenerys who goes to Dorne, which is like a parallel for the far north, and the water gardens are built in her honor. So that's kind of like building a new weirwood net, a water garden. It's a garden of plants, but it's like water, so that's the weirwood net sea. And there's a new one built to honor Daenerys. So again, that would fit if Daenerys remakes or gives a rebirth to the weirwood net in the heart of winter. I think that's a good correlation. Mm-hmm. Tysha disappears. Yep.
Everyone at Yeen disappears.
Yeah, is Jones,
True,
it's
that
like a
is
big
true.
Jonestown full of, Daenerys who disappear, right?
Cool. Well, there you go. I'll go ahead and call it there. That's a good place to stop. Thank you, Sean and Tim. If you have not subscribed to their channels, of course, their channels are in the description, hyperlinked. Gray Waste Tim and Hero with 1,000 Voices. And Tim is cooking up a new video. Mm-hmm. Sean, what are you working on?
I just released a new video on King Arthur on Wednesday. So
right.
Please
go watch Sean's new King Arthur video. That's right. I forgot. I didn't watch it yet.
Yeah.
No worries. And I have 2 more King Arthur videos coming. One is going to be based around Gawain and the Green Knight and kind of J.R.R. Tolkien's interpretation of it, because he did a lot of work on that and wrote a book. And then there is going to be another one that's kind of just exploring how it became inconsistent as it evolved. Like, is the Grail have to do with this Fisher King guy? Is it a Christian quest? Is Merlin the Antichrist, a wizard, a druid? Like, why are these so inconsistent? And then there will be a video kind of covering how that evolved and why there are so many contradictions.
That's sick. Well, I'll look forward to that whole series. I got to watch that one. Kirsty Angel with a good catch. Dunk's shield has an elm tree on it. And then he is an item with Rohan, who not only is she Rowan, which is an ash tree, she raises horses. So Yggdrasil, Odin's horse. So this is like the Norse myth of Ask and Elmba, Ash and Elm being the sort of first people. That
she was in love with Adam, the first man.
Oh, right. Yeah. So that's another echo of the creation myth there. That's cool.
She built a dam out of him.
Right. Adam, a dam. Yeah, I remember this all now. Wacky stuff. All right, guys. Love y'all. See ya. I don't know if I'll have a video out this week. It's iffy, actually. It's possible I might just use this week to get ahead of schedule for next week. But I will have a lot of videos coming out over the next few months leading up to House of the Dragon. We're going to do a lot of Ice and Fire heavy hitters. I'm going to do a big Winterfell one. I've got a 3D rendered Crypts. We're going to be doing Septon Barth video. That might be the next one that I put out. We're going to do a Nissa Nissa Explained still, Dothraki 2, all kinds of stuff going. So make sure you are subscribed to my channel, and I will see you again soon with more content. Cheers, y'all.